It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on the special edition of the Jeff and Bill Show following the Tim Walz, J.D. Vance mega VP debate that took place last night. The eyes of the nation upon those two gentlemen. What did you think? This is Denver's talk leader, and we want to hear from you today. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis line, Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115, for what the debate had to do, which was appeal to independents and moderates. I think J.D. Vance did a fantastic job. He was poised. He delivered clear answers. He spoke with strength and focus and determination. I thought he did an absolutely fantastic job. Now, Tim Walz stumbled around a little bit at the beginning. It wasn't a terrible night for Tim Walz by any means, but compared to the two, I think J.D. Vance delivered the victory for the Trump-Vance campaign last night. But I'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. We'll start with news and comment from Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 53 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 89 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
My community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times.
Yes, you are. I think you're being kind, Jeff. I think
Blake,
JD
that
Vance
was awesome.
crushed it. Oh, thanks, man. You know, it didn't take a lot. After watching that last night, I thought Vance dominated, but it depends how you look at it.
I mean, it was definitely a dominate.
Yeah.
I don't think Walz had a night, and believe me, I'm comparing it to Joe Biden at this point, right?
Oh, good point.
It wasn't to the point where, although I did see a hilarious meme.
I think it's the same one I was just thinking of. Go ahead.
Like, we've got to get the guy from Pennsylvania, call him. We got to get Shapiro back up here. Yeah. But the idea that it was a draw, we got one text message here that said, no way was that a draw.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think the best word to describe it to me, J.D. Vance, is reassuring.
Yes.
I mean, how can he covers all bases. I think men like him. I think women, which is incredible. I think women, if they seriously sit down and listen to him, women have to like him.
Blue eyes,
on the left
man.
or right.
Steely blue eyes, just staring right through the camera at people.
Yeah, and he was kind. He was kind to Walz.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have ripped him from, limb to limb. But, that's exactly, and he was smooth, very good, and very intelligent. I think he is a master debater.
No
question.
And look, for me, what I saw through that was a man who has taken media interview after media interview after media interview. There was not a single question that he wasn't prepared for. He wasn't ready to have an answer. He studied. He fact-checked the reporters,
beautiful. Oh my goodness, that part, I think that may have been the highlight. We gotta play that one also. Now, real quickly before I move on, the one I saw, the meme I saw was, okay, it's a photo of Obama and it says, I gotta find someone dumber than me to be VP, and then you see Biden. And then Biden says, I got to find someone dumber than me to be VP. And you see Harris. And then Harris says, I got to find someone dumber than me to be VP. And it's Walz with his eyes looking like, saucers and the goofy faces that he made last night. There are a lot of, I love high school football coaches and football coaches in general, but the ones who are on the left, man, they are out of their minds, and I saw that last night. All right, so here's some more of the mess and Walz.
Said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies.
So then he goes on and does what?
I joined the National Guard at 17.
Boy, Kamala
And then
Kamala Khan does just talk and distract, and you forget what the doggone question was. He goes on for another 2 minutes, but I love this. I kind of cut it so we didn't have to go through it, but here you go.
I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this is I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
Oh my gosh, that was one of the best moments.
Yes, I think so. I think that he went on and on and on.
Why can't folks just be honest? I mean, the American people have a lot of grace. He got to it at the end. If he had just said that at the beginning,
no doubt.
Look, I got there later this summer. I misspoke.
Yeah. Exactly.
Dude, I went on.
I think it was 2 minutes, right? I think it was like a minute and
15 times a day on this show.
Absolutely. I mean, the American people are forgiving. All right, here's the mainstream media reaction. It's all over the place.
There is no doubt in my mind, however Governor Walz did in terms of sincerity.
That's Geraldo.
That Vance won this debate.
Does Governor Walz have a problem with the truth? No.
They were talking at one point. Vance wanted to correct something about how Haitians got into this country. And he was right. And the moderators wouldn't let him correct it. It's very interesting.
But at the beginning, the two issues driving the campaign right now are Harris has a big deficit on the economy. Harris has a big deficit on immigration. And Republicans were happy tonight and Democrats a little bit nervous that on those two issues, Vance carried it.
J.D. Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
It's the audacity. I agree with you that we're in year 9 and no one knows how to cover the audacity. Mm-hmm. The audacity is that someone should have said, stop it, stop. Are you effing kidding me? And they should have dropped that F-bomb, right? I mean, they should have just, this is a debate. This may be the only chance people have to see the difference.
Okay, I have no idea what she was talking about, but whatever. Rescue teams still searching for survivors in North Carolina towns devastated by flooding from Hurricane Helene. FEMA rescue teams from around the country, including Colorado, helping the North Carolina National Guard locate stranded people in the flooded mountain towns in the western part of the state. State officials say over 500 people have been rescued so far. SpaceX founder Elon Musk has agreed to use dozens of Starlink receivers and terminals to help residents in North Carolina regain access to the internet due to Helene. Former President Trump.
North Carolina, the biggest problem seems to be like zero communication. The poles are all down, the wires are all down. And they asked me whether or not I could help with Starlink. It's another genius concept of Elon Musk. And I called Elon and they were having a hard time getting it. It's a hot thing. And Elon immediately got involved. And we have the most incredible that they did in one day. They got tremendous communication.
That's pretty amazing. 180 Iranian ballistic missiles fired at Israel Tuesday, and NYPD officers are maintaining a visible presence in the Jewish communities of New York City following the attack on Israel. Officers are being stationed outside synagogues and other religious institutions as tensions continue to rise in the Middle East. the Biden administration is supporting U.S. dock workers on day 2 of a major union strike. The strike by the International Longshoremen's Association is blocking everything from food to vehicle shipments at ports from Maine to Texas. Analysts estimate the strike could cost the U.S. economy about $5 billion a day. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 48 in Castle Pines, 49 in Louisville, and 53 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. It's Hump Day Wednesday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Mostly sunny, dry days, mostly clear, cool nights, and temperatures that'll be bouncing up and down a little bit here in Denver between now and the end of the weekend, but still no precipitation coming. Very warm today. Highs in the upper 80s, lows tonight near 50. Cooler tomorrow. Temperatures back down into the 70s, but then into the 80s, dry and sunny Friday through Sunday. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. Moderator Margaret Brennan last night during the debate. But your mics are open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Are you thrilled with the performance of J.D. Vance? Do you think Tim Walz held his own? Who won the debate last night? Would love to hear from you. You can text us as well on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Billy, give me your breakdown on the debate.
It was boring. It was just, I don't know. Vance did better than I thought he was going to. He did really, really well, and Walz did more poorly than I thought he was going to. He seemed a little bit shocked by the moment, and Vance was persuasive and effective. He did a very good job. Now, let's see if it's going to move the needle. I'm curious about it. I think there were a couple of really good moments. Walz had a couple, and Vance had a couple. I'm curious what the takeaway moment from this debate is going to be, because I'm not convinced a whole lot of people that were persuadable watched it. I don't know. I've heard both things on the liberal side, that not necessarily a bad debate, and they keep wanting to push it as a tie. I disagree. I think Vance won the debate. But I don't know. I'm curious, again, what that takeaway moment is going to be. What are the things that someone's going to remember from this debate?
Yeah, no, that's a really, really good point. I think they'll probably remember, well, just throw some things out there and we'll see what the callers think. I think the congeniality of the two will be memorable, especially after years and years of WWE knockdown, drag out battles that took place during the debate. You actually had some moments of congeniality between the two where J.D. Vance, said that Tim Walz's son seeing a shooting, witnessing a shooting was a horrible thing. He said that was sorry that his son had to witness that. And then there were moments where they kept going back and forth going, well, there's areas I agree with you on this. And there's, certain aspects that I agree. And we're closer than we imagined, which I think will be possibly one takeaway. Look, this was in many ways an introduction of the two candidates to many American voters that might see clips, might see ads, but got to see the two up there before a national audience in a way they hadn't before. It was an opportunity. I think the strategy, well, let's go with strategy. What was very clear to me, at least from the Trump-Vance side, was that they were appealing to moderates and independents. It was not a rock-ribbed conservative. There were moments where I was like, come on, go for the conservative talking point. And Vance was relatively moderate in a lot of his positions, from my perspective.
Yeah, I think he wasn't. I think it was an oddly normal debate.
Right.
I did see Vance try to tack back to the center a little bit, which was odd, given that he's like, Mr. Super MAGA most of the time. It was interesting to see him go through that. The other one that, and again, I don't know if it's going to be a moment or not that will be a takeaway. The one that I think we've played already, we've heard the Tiananmen Square one, but I'm not certain that, he misspoke about going there years ago, what that looks like. And I'm curious about, at the tail end of the debate, Vance's non-answer about the 2020 election results. I'm curious about that one as well, as far as the stickiness there, because that, for me, was where Vance looked the most uncomfortable during the entire debate.
I would agree with that. And I actually thought there was another avenue that he just didn't take at all.
Yeah, what?
Which was the BLM riots that took place in Minneapolis. He could have pivoted and gone, Walz, I sure appreciate the fact you're condemning violence that took place at the Capitol on January 6th. We should all condemn that. But you seem eerily quiet about the violence that destroyed your own communities during the BLM riots.
Yeah, that probably would have been stronger than his pivot to the COVID censorship.
Yes, I agree with that.
I was like, that's a really weird one to pivot to. That was a strange one. And it was, and I don't know whether or not that non-answer is going to be an answer. And that was the one time I thought that Walz looked very comfortable in what he was doing. He looked really uncomfortable for the first 10, 15 minutes.
I agree entirely.
Really uncomfortable. That the lights in the moment seemed a little bit too big for him at that point. And he was you could see him searching for some of the pre-canned answers that he was trying to get to rather than just talking, which would have been better. And there were a couple of things that I was surprised, given the fact that he is a high school teacher, that he didn't high school teacher J.D. Vance on. And there were some things I thought he could have said and done to erode Vance's confidence and his believability. But he did not take those options. And I don't know if they were planned or not planned, or he just didn't see them. It's just that idea of, and I don't want to go too far afield on this, but the idea of, I've been in a classroom teaching and I've taught kids and I've had kids like you that say this, and want X, Y, and Z. And he could have done that. And there were ways I thought they could have weaved in to undercut Vance's believability on a lot of topics, because I would have gone after the idea that you've taken up almost every position you've talked about. You've been on both sides of it. You said this was bad and now this is good, and looking at that, pushing him as that kid who will say whatever he wants in order to be elected class president. I thought there was an avenue there on two separate occasions that Walz could have gone after that and didn't. I was surprised, because I thought the high school teacher in him would have been prepared for that, and he wasn't. That's okay. It's a missed opportunity, but both are missed opportunities.
So when it comes to what they had to achieve, so from my perspective, Trump, Vance wanted to go out there and connect with moderates and independents. MAGA is locked down. For the most part, conservatives, with a handful of never Trumpers, locked down. And so we're going to use this opportunity 1 month out to go and be appealing to centrists that might have concerns about Donald Trump. And I imagine there's some. I saw Frank Luntz, his poll yesterday afterwards, of people going, well, I liked Trump Vance, and they feel maybe more comfortable with Vance in the administration, and they like his approach to things. What do you think Harris Walz had to do, and do you think that they had to achieve it? That they achieved it last night?
Yeah, I think that that Walz needed to make you feel comfortable with he and Kamala Harris, and I think he failed a little bit on that. Not huge, but if I had to grade him, I would give him maybe a C+. That I don't think he necessarily damaged the ticket, but I don't think he helped the ticket. I do think that he may have hurt his own favorability ratings because he was the most liked and most favored one out of all four of the candidates. I think his numbers are going to slide a little bit, not a lot, because I think he had very low expectations. No one was expecting a seasoned debater. No one was expecting. I mean, they expected a high school teacher and governor. So it wasn't necessarily the idea of the Yale Law School guy type of an idea. I think J.D. Vance, I'm not certain that he helped the Trump ticket gain any traction, but I think he helped his own favorability ratings. I think he is now going to be viewed as more favorable, more trustworthy, and more likable. Does it make him positive? No, because he is the most disliked of all four of the candidates. This is the weird part. It was the most disliked against the most liked. And I think that Walz hurt his likability and J.D. Vance increased his likability, but I don't know to what extent. But I don't think that either candidate did a whole lot of positivity or did a whole lot of negativity to either of the campaigns, only because this is a snapshot in a moment in time. And the people at the top of the ticket are going to get out and talk over the next month. And I feel any positivity from either side can be eroded by dumb mistakes by the person at the top of the ticket.
Top of the ticket.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Harris Walz were introducing Walz to the American people, a guy that's generally totally unknown. I mean, when they announced him, I didn't even know who that guy was.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm generally into politics, but I didn't even know who Tim Walz was. And so you had a lot of people that were being introduced to him for the first time. But and I think he got more confident as the debate went on, but those first 15 minutes were pretty brutal for a guy that you're introducing and you want him to be the number 2 leader in this nation, ready to step in and become the president of the United States. God forbid something happened to the president. And I think that was a failure for the Harris Walz campaign. I want to get to the phone lines here in just a second. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Speaking of Dan Caplis, I've known Dan for well over a decade. This guy is a real winner. First of all, he's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. He'd do a great job in these debates. He should run for office. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis is the son of a police officer. He's a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is more than just a guy with great values. He's a real winner in the courtroom. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is so trusted that they are the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551 or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S Law.com. Let's go to the phone lines. Rob, Lakewood, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS.
Morning.
Yeah, good morning, Jeff and Bill. I think what we saw last night was that the Republicans are a little bit reticent to really attack in a forceful manner on fraudulent representation of policy. And my point on that is Walz and Harris have continually brought up us not going through with the border bill and President Trump putting the squelch on it. What I would like to see is for President Trump and J.D. Vance to actually point out the terrible aspects of that bill,
yes.
what it allowed, and it didn't mitigate really the problem, but they use it as an excuse. Now, on the humorous side, when Tim
Hold on
Walz
real
said
quick, Rob, on that, I was sitting there the whole time going, House Bill 2, House Bill 2, come on.
Yes.
Come on, JD, bring up House Bill 2, which was the Republican idea on how we're going to close the border and deal with the immigration crisis we're facing in this country. And he never went there. It's almost like they just allow it to just float out there like a fart in the room. I'm like, come on, guys, address it. But yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, we need to be more aggressive in pointing out the fallaciousness of their arguments that was a bill that solved the problem. Now, on the humorous side, the Democrats love to point out Republicans that are reprobates, in my opinion, like the Cheneys, that put their special interests and their hurt feelings over the good of the country. And they're rhinos. I've been hesitant to use that term because I thought we'd just throw that out to Republicans we disagree with. But these guys like Kinzinger and Cheney and these other reprobates that come out and support Kamala, who's far left and totally out of the mainstream, to me, there's no excuse for them being acceptable in the party. Now, that said, when Tim Walz said that he was friends with school shooters, we thought that was interesting. I was watching with a group of Republicans. He misspoke when he was talking about, meeting with parents and stuff. And he said at one point, it kind of went past, I think, most people. He said, yeah, I'm friends with school shooters.
Yeah, that was a big, bad gaffe on his part. But going back to what you were saying about Dick Cheney, when Tim Walz goes, well, we've got Bernie Sanders, Dick Cheney, and Taylor Swift on our team. I was just going, I don't know if that's the team you really want to run with. I'm not sure voters that are like, well, I like Bernie Sanders, Dick Cheney, and Taylor Swift all together.
Yeah.
That was a reach.
Well, and it was a missed opportunity for JD to just kind of wink and put the prod in there. Well, Tim, we've got members of your family that actually know who you are and support our team. It's your brother.
Now, Rob, I've got a question. I got a question for you about the idea of the Cheneys now being viewed in your mind as rhinos. Why do you view them as rhinos? Walk me through that.
Well, they're not Republican anymore. I know that President Trump isn't seen as a regular Republican, and I, as a long time, all my life Republican from when I was 10 years old, I don't look at him as the normal Republican type person, but he's the guy that we needed at this point in time to disrupt and change some things.
Yeah,
now,
Rob, but okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. But what I'm trying to figure out is why Cheney's no longer a Republican.
I don't see him as Republican because Republicans stand on principle. Now, you may not like certain things, you may not like personalities, and I wasn't a big fan of Cheney's personality, but I never questioned that he was a decent guy and meant well. But at the offshoot of the Iran incursion and the war that we had over there and things coming out, I see Cheney differently as probably just a crass person that used policy for his special interests with Halliburton and other things. So I think he's not really a principled Republican. You may say I don't care for Trump on some policies or certain things, but to come out and go way the other way and say that now you support a far leftist whose father was a communist, I just have an issue with that. It's okay to disagree and not like Trump. I'm not a Trump sycophant, but I'm strongly for him because of the situation we're in, and we have two clear variants of policy going forward, and Trump represents the best way to handle it, in my opinion.
What do you do with the idea that Dick Cheney is doing exactly what you claimed? He's standing on his principles. He believes that Donald. Yeah, I know, but he believes that Donald Trump is a detriment to the country, so he's standing on his principles. But you started this saying Republicans stand on their principles. If he is standing on his principles, is it fair to say he's no longer a Republican?
Well, I guess, no, he can consider himself whatever he wants. But in my opinion, when you actively work against the Republican candidate, just because you have issues with him as a person or whatever, or some policies, and you come out and you support the other side, which is antithetical and has blasted Dick Cheney for decades, what kind of a what kind of a principled stand is that really? Maybe he is. Maybe in his mind he's standing on principle, but I don't view him as a good Republican anymore. And I don't care that he served under George Bush and all these other things.
Heck, he was an intern. He was an intern in the Nixon administration and actually worked with Donald Rumsfeld for a while on his staff. I understand what you're saying, Rob, and that's kind of where I was going with this. And thank you so much for the call, because I believe that Joe from Arvada was right a year ago when he said it's no longer the Republican Party, it is the Trump Party. And I think the conversation with Rob shows that it isn't necessarily about an individual Republican standing on their principles and perhaps disagreeing with Donald Trump being the leader of the party. It has more to do with get behind the guy who is the leader of the party. It's more party over principle. And that's what I was trying to point out in that conversation there, that I do feel that portions of the Republican Party have decided that it is party over principle. And I think that's one of the dangers going forward for the GOP. The Democrats have their own dangers with Kamala and bringing Bernie under their wing and everything else. But I think that's part of the danger, is you're now saying the party is larger than the principles you did claim to hold. And it's going to be interesting going forward to see how this works out.
Yeah, my take is that it's entirely personal.
Sure,
we'll
could
get
be.
to that. We can get to that next. We'll take your calls. By the way, they're filling up. We've got text message. If you can't get in, text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is fighting back after a judge ruled that he is not allowed to investigate voter harvesting schemes in the state. Paxton saying he will immediately move to block the ruling that targeted a key Texas election integrity law passed back in 2021 after a federal district court ruled that a portion of the law was unconstitutional. The section increased safeguards to prevent ballot harvesting. The judge also banned Paxton from opening investigations into instances of election fraud under the portion of election code enjoined by the decision. Paxton saying he won't back down and that a ruling weeks prior to an election preventing my office from investigating potential election violations is deeply troubling and risks undermining public trust in our political process. Settlement checks related to Norfolk Southern's disastrous 2023 train derailment could be delayed up to 2 years now because an appeal of a federal judge's decision last week to approve the $600 million deal has been filed. Many residents of East Palestine, Ohio, expressed outrage online over the weekend about the appeal because it will delay the payments they had been counting on to help them recover from the toxic train crash that disrupted their lives when it spewed hazardous chemicals into their community. Some people had planned to use the money to relocate. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Aguayo, Salem News Channel.
night last night for J.D. Vance in the vice presidential debate. Tim Walz. Not a disastrous night for Walz by any means compared to the Joe Biden debate. I think he's remaining on the ticket. But in an effort to outreach to moderate and independents, I think the Trump campaign did very well last night. J.D. Vance looked poised, confident, knew his answers. And I think all the media he's done time and time again, even facing hostile media, prepared him very well. And the hide Kamala Harris and Tim Walz away from the media and the tough questions backfired a bit last night. Would love to hear your thoughts. 303-696-1971. Let's go to Joan in Lakewood. Good morning, Joan.
Good morning. First of all, I want to say with Rob that I am a Trump sycophant. So I'm not going to talk too much about whether it was Trump that won or Harris that lost. I'm going to talk about what happened with the debate itself in the media. The fact that there was no opening statements, I found very disconcerting. Usually they get like 2 minutes to tell who they are and to set the stage. And I think that one of the more interesting things was how JD said, well, this is a debate and I'm going to treat it like a debate, and actually made his own opening statement. And the other thing that I thought was truly interesting was how respectful JD was when he called out the the moderator, on how she was check-fagging. And it was interesting because they had actually put, I believe, 2 women in there because they didn't want him beating up on the poor women. Don't beat up on the women. And I think he did a very good job of pointing out, you broke the rules, and I'm going to treat you like an equal.
Fact checking the fact checkers. And then they cut off his microphone. I think we might have that audio. We do. Huh? Here it is. Here's the audio of J.D. Vance fact checking last night.
And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important
we're
because
going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
we
CBP
want to have.
One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process.
So there's a few things to say about that, Joan. First of all, that was the debate was getting good. Let the 2 dudes go back and forth. They're debating a very important immigration policy that's resulted in, 20,000 Haitians showing up in Springfield, Ohio, and then I think it's over 200,000 total that have come into this country. So they're actually debating a good moment there. But we're also at a point now where they won't fact check you directly. They'll just fact check you into their own statement next, and then move on to the question. Lauren Boebert got angry about this the other day when she was doing a CPR interview where she's going just the perspective, your liberal progressive perspective comes through in the way you ask the questions. What do you think, Joan?
Well, the only other thing, I think that you're right that it was a 3-on-1 kind of situation, but I think that he handled it really well. I think the weirdest part of the whole thing was watching Walz, because he kept scribbling and looking down. And so part of the thing that I was looking at was man, that man is bald. And it kind of made me think a little bit more about how young and blue-eyed J.D. Vance was.
You know, I saw a lot of ladies on X talking about they felt like J.D. Vance was looking right at them. With those steely blue eyes. Joan, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate it. Joan's line will be open 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Look, are you a homeowner considering selling your home? Let Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team use their database of over 13,700 ready buyers to get your home sold for top dollar. Many real estate agents make promises, but very few have the proof to back it up. The Empower Home team has review after review from families they have served that back up what they say. They net their sellers 6.1% more money on average, getting their sellers $30,500 more in their pocket. No matter who wins the election, no matter what kind of market we're in, the Empower Home team brings both the experience and track record to help you navigate your home sale and get you top dollar. If your home doesn't sell, Gay Ribble will actually buy it. That's her guarantee to you. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams. Call 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's Gaye hasthebuyers.com. We'll continue with analysis on the historic vice presidential debate that took place last night. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're covering on the vice presidential debate that took place last night between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. Let's go to Joe Arvada. Good morning, Joe. I bet you're feeling pretty good.
Hey, morning.
Good morning, Billy, Jeff. Yeah, Tim Tampon disgraced himself. I know your take, Billy, is that he held his own. But let's be intellectually honest. If it was a fight, it would have been called.
Rachel, I don't know if it would have been called, but absolutely he got beat. Absolutely on the scorecards, end of the match, end of the fights by the boxer scores, the judges scores. Yeah, he got beat. I'm intellectually honest enough to say that. Yeah, absolutely.
I saw Rachel Maddow trying to run in with smelling salts on a feminine napkin. And also at the end of the debate, I heard the first caller was what's her face? I forget her name. Well, anyway,
Psaki?
She's the
circle back.
No,
Psaki?
The one that supports Harris. Taylor Swift called and said she's switching her vote. But now, here's the thing. Tim Tampon said so many things that disgraced himself. He's friends of school shooters, friends of Dick Cheney, friends of Dick Nixon. Oh, well, he didn't even go there, but I'm sure he's friends of Dick Wadhams. The point is that everything he did was a mistake from the opening sentence to the end, but he got bailed out by the CBS moderators. I thought that was great.
Joe, I got to ask you this question. I mean, look, we're at a point where if you pay close attention to policy, you've made up your mind. So we're at the voters that just tune in very last second when it comes to a presidential race. Do you think that people want to listen to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz talk for the next 4 years?
Oh, painful. How painful of a question. Oh, my goodness. Can you subject yourself to a grading on a chalkboard?
I know. I'm serious about that. I mean, people, that's part of the equation. You're going to have to listen to them not answer a question ever for the next 4 years. I'd much rather have Trump. I'd much rather have Trump and media fight it out. I like it.
I got a question about that for both of you, because I have seen some polls and surveys that have shown Trump's behavior in those type of public examples, the public speeches and the rallies, remind people of what they disliked about him the first time. They had forgotten over the course of the Biden administration because all the failures of the Biden administration. Now, when he gets up and does his angry man thing, people are turned away. And these are some of those persuadable voters. I'm not certain that the idea of Kamala or Tim being bad orators is going to work, given the other option being Trump. I'll give it that Vance is better, but the other option being Trump. Your thoughts?
Well, you'd rather have a friend of a school shooter and somebody who can put a tampon in at your male child's bathroom. I mean, come on.
I mean, Joe, we could go back and forth with insults. I can talk about the idea that you favor a guy who says that he can go around and grab women's genitals, a man that has been found liable for sexual assault. That's the person that you think should be running the country. I mean, if we want to trade insults about candidates, we can.
He's somewhat normal.
I disagree that grabbing women by the genitals when they don't ask for it is normal. I disagree with that. But again, I don't want to trade insults about him. I want to get your idea about what do you think about that burnout factor that some people are saying with Trump's oratory style.
Well, I think that you have to look at the whole package. Donald Trump has been assaulted by the left for, what is it now, 10 years running? If you had been hammered by NBC, ABC, CBS, all of them, including then all the deep state misfits that have attacked him as well, you would be a little bit edgy. And now here's the thing. Donald J. Trump has still kept his sense of humor. I mean, he still brings a smile.
I think that's true. But what's best for the country? What's best for the country is a president and a media that will go back and forth and trade barbs. What you get with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz is, one, a media that adores them. So they don't even ask really tough questions, and they won't even do media. And when they answer, it's a bizarre word salad that makes you forget what the question was even about. So you're not getting honest responses from political leaders. I'd much rather, even if it was the other way around, if we had a conservative media and a progressive president and they were trading barbs and going back and forth and really debating that, I think that's better for America than what we currently have between the media and Harris Walz.
And I'm not certain that the critique of Kamala and word salad will stick, given what falls out of Donald Trump's face hole all the time. It's just not, that's not going to be as fruitful.
I don't think he's perfect, but I don't think
Trump is
nearly as bad.
Oh, Trump is far worse.
Far
worse. I can play audio. Far worse. He's far worse.
Look at the stark contrast. It's a time for choosing now. You can say all you want about their styles of delivery, but the stark contrast is in decision making. Look at the decision with J.D. Vance versus the decision with Tampon Tim. What a moronic decision for a vice president. And
Joe,
and I'm not sure who he's talking about, though. Is he talking about Walz or is he talking about Vance? We didn't identify it. You can call in next time and tell us, Joe, who you were talking about.
Joe, always fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
we'll continue the conversation. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, October 2nd. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. We're providing all the analysis you need after a historic debate between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance for the vice presidential ticket. And we've had some great callers. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. One of the more civil debates we've had in a long time. You think about all the primaries, even Democrat primaries. Obviously, Trump in his primaries would go at it. Even the Republican primary without Donald Trump in it that took place this last cycle would get a little, what do I call, WWE style. This was right out of kind of the traditional vice presidential role, but with a lot at stake in two relatively unknown candidates. It was a big night for both campaigns. Who do you think won? Would love to hear from you. 303-696-1971 or text the show 720-819-5115. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff and Billy. 52 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 89 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times. And I'm a knucklehead at times. And I'm a knucklehead at times.
That one morning, I had, I don't know, a few hours sleep, and I like to sleep. I just got up, I was like, and so I just went out and got a pork roast and started marinating.
See, time to work.
Oh, yeah, it's a perfect combination. Harris and Walz couldn't ask for any better. J.D. Vance looked and sounded more qualified than no Walz. Tim last night in the VP debate, he mopped the floor with Walz. Come on, here's how you do it. Vance fact checks Nora and Margaret.
We have so much to get to. Clarify. Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important
we're
because
going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own
Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
we want to have
One app has not been on the books.
One smart guy and three dummies.
The audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, like more abortion talk. Here's what CNN was thinking after the debate.
I think there was a clear lack of preparation and execution here
I
on
think
Walz's part.
I think actually it's the opposite. I think he had too much preparation.
Maybe.
He had so many lines that he was clearly trying to say that he didn't listen and said when J.D. Vance said one of the many things he really hit Kamala Harris on, not Tim Walz, but Kamala Harris, he didn't respond because he clearly had things in his mind. I think the lack of interviews that he has done with national media, with local media, it showed. He needed more reps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, J.D. Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
Sound like a funeral to me.
No, I mean, look, you're exactly right, because that type of political engagement is a muscle. And if you don't work it out, and you spend all your time giving speeches, shaking hands, and having softball media interviews once a week or something like that, versus a guy who day after day is willing to take on hostile media, he's just going to have a bigger muscle to engage in those debates. And that came through. And I think this strategy, I sure hope As a Republican, maybe I shouldn't hope, but if you're in the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz camp, you are absolutely rethinking the strategy of keeping these guys away from the media right now.
Oh, no doubt.
It backfired on him.
No, it really did. I mean, you're exactly right. He looks like he's been trained, just so comfortable, and he's principled. And that's something, they're all over the place. So great job, JD Vance. Rescue teams still searching for survivors in North Carolina towns devastated by flooding from Hurricane Helene. FEMA rescue teams around the country, including Colorado, helping North Carolina National Guard locate stranded people in the flooded mountain towns in the western part of the state. State officials say over 500 people have been rescued so far. SpaceX founder Elon Musk has agreed to use dozens of Starlink receivers and terminals to help residents in Carolina regain access to the internet due to Helene. DJT.
And I called Elon, and they were having a hard time getting in. It's a hot thing. And Elon immediately got involved, and we have the most incredible that they did in one day. They got tremendous communication. They went from literally no communication to tremendous. So I want to thank Elon Musk for what he's done in North Carolina.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says Iran will pay for Tuesday's attack. Iran launched nearly 200 missiles toward Israel in retaliation for airstrikes in Lebanon that killed a Hezbollah leader. Netanyahu made a statement after the attack promising Israel will retaliate and that Iran made a big mistake. The Biden administration is supporting U.S. dock workers on day 2 of a major union strike. The strike by International Longshoremen's Association is blocking everything from food to vehicle shipments at ports from Maine to Texas. Analysts estimate the strike could cost the U.S. economy about $5 billion a day. 2 more arrest warrants have been issued in a viral video of that Aurora apartment complex showing a group of armed men knocking on doors. The warrants are for 25-year-old Edelson Yoel Pena Aguilo and 23-year-old Daniel Emil Meneses on charges of first-degree burglary and menacing with a firearm. Police say that Aguilo and Armio Meneses were among 4 others who were seen on the video taken from security cameras at the edge at Lowry Complex back on August 18th. Just minutes before the 25-year-old Oswaldo Jose Duban Araujo was fatally shot at the complex. The video gained national attention, of course, and garnered fears of the Venezuelan gang takeover at the complex. Anyone with information on the whereabouts of Anguilo or Meneses should call Metro Denver Crime Stoppers. It is 50 in Lone Tree, 47 in Boulder, and 52 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. A perfect combination. It's hump day after JD Vance mops the floor. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Mostly sunny, dry days, mostly clear, cool nights, and temperatures that'll be bouncing up and down a little bit here in Denver between now and the end of the weekend, but still no precipitation coming. Very warm today. Highs in the upper 80s, lows tonight near 50. Cooler tomorrow. Temperatures back down into the 70s, but then into the 80s, dry and sunny Friday through Sunday. Weather sponsored by BranchPlanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at BranchPlanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist on day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
JD Vance, Tim Walz debate that took place last night, the one and only vice presidential debate, and probably the last debate to take place between these two tickets. Who's going to win in November? In light of yesterday's debate, are you more optimistic that Trump Vance are going to pull this one out? Or is it still Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and likability that's going to come down to it? Would love to hear from you. 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's go to the phone lines. Tony Littleton. Good morning, Tony. What are your thoughts about last night?
Yeah, morning.
Hey, good morning. I think you guys have covered that pretty well, and I think Vance did have a good show. But I was actually calling about an issue that you and Billy touched on a little earlier, and it was about Cheney and you believing that to be personal, his view. And I'm wondering if it gives you any pause that no vice president, no president Republican, no nominee, and hundreds of cabinet members and administration members and Justice Department members going all the way back to Reagan and through every Republican presidency have all signed on to this notion that they believe Trump is a threat to the country, a threat to democracy. It's not personal. They've stated what their reason is, even through their own statements or letters that they've signed on to. And I don't think this has ever happened. Does that give you pause in any way that people probably representing somewhere between 10 and 20,000 years of experience in Republican administrations are saying that guy should not be president? I would say I'll just finish my thought and then I want to hear this out. But if Kamala did not have, if no Democratic president, former president, vice president, hundreds of cabinet members say she's a Democrat, say she's a risk to the country, that would give me pause. It doesn't give you any. It doesn't give you pause at all.
And I'll explain why, Tony. So let's look at the Bush administration. Okay, 8 years, we went to war in Iraq, in Afghanistan. We had the financial crisis of 2008, and the people that put us in those positions are supporting Kamala Harris and not supporting Donald Trump. So no, it doesn't give me any. It doesn't give me. It doesn't give me any pause.
Reagan's administration.
Tony, do you think we were in a good position in this country at the end of Bush's terms in 2008?
Obviously, we were in very rough shape, and I mean it's actually kind of ironic. Every Republican, H.W. Bush handed Clinton a recession, Bush handed Obama the Great Recession, and Trump handed Biden the pandemic.
That's
kind of the truth of the last 6 administrations. I mean, it's kind of a big deal, but that's not even my point. My point was all these people, for the reason they consider him a threat to the democracy, are saying they will not support him and will even vote opposite. They'll vote for the Democrats.
That falls flat because he was the president. We had 4 years with him, and what Democratic principle
that's one
was
out of the
lost?
hundreds.
What was lost under Trump's presidency?
It's one out of the hundreds.
That was a threat to your democratic rights.
All right, Jeff. We'll set him aside. What about the hundreds that stretch all the way back to Reagan's administration and H.W. Bush?
I don't care. I really don't care. I mean, look, if they're not willing to get on board with the direction of the Republican Party on where it is today, I think
Billy
that's their
kind of
fault.
hit the point?
I think that's
hit
their
the
fault.
nail on the head when he said they put the
Cheney.
country before
Tony,
party.
You guys got Dick Cheney.
You don't have to yell. You don't have to yell.
Hold on.
You can hang up.
Tony,
you don't have
you guys ran around calling him Darth Vader and Satan incarnate, and now he's on your team.
Aren't
that's
these
a bigger
hundreds
problem for you all than us.
Let me finish the point. I think Billy hit it on the head. Aren't all of these people saying, which is outrageous, they're all saying country before party. They're all saying the same thing. That means something. That would mean something to me. It means something to me that they're doing it now. But if it was in reverse, and I was hearing all these people come out against Kamala from her own party, I would be damn concerned. I would be truly concerned.
Tony,
if Obama said, no way, cannot happen.
I like
Clinton says, no way, cannot happen.
Tony, you can have Dick Cheney. I'm very happy that we got Tulsi Gabbard and
one
Robert
out of the
F. Kennedy
hundreds.
and Elon Musk, because there's a fundamental pushback happening against institutions right now. And every Republican that you just listed tends to be an institutionalist. And I was a big supporter of George W. Bush and even defended the war in Iraq. Okay. And where we are after, hold on, after their leadership, I think Reagan would support Trump right now. I absolutely think Reagan would support Trump.
There's no way.
Yes.
There's no way.
100%.
No. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why he wouldn't. I'll tell you why he wouldn't. Because of Trump's approach to Ukraine and Russia. There's no way. There's no way. Hang on a sec. Listen, when he did the press conference the other day with Zelensky, he talked about having a good relationship with Putin and being able to trust him, some other stuff. Zelensky had to jump in and say, oh, but we have a better relationship, right? And Trump's like, oh, yeah, ha, 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 ha. No. You would never find, Ronald Reagan giving deference to Russia ever. Now, you can talk about domestically, etc.
Did you even watch the movie Reagan?
That's where he would break with him.
Did you watch the movie Reagan? Where it was about a
Forget
friendship?
the movie.
Wait, hold on. When it was about a friendship between Reagan and Gorbachev that brought down that wall. So this idea that they're fighting each other the whole time.
Hang on a sec. This is what I want to. Okay, you asked me whether or not I watched the movie Reagan.
Yeah,
I was there.
I know.
I lived through it.
I think you're forgetting a major point of it, which was it wasn't a combative relationship in its entirety that led to the fall of the Soviet Union. It was actually a friendship the movie Reagan
it's how they worked together with Gorbachev.
Yes.
But Reagan giving deference the way that Trump does to Russia wouldn't happen.
I want to go back.
That wouldn't happen.
To the reason why you have a certain amount of Republicans that have broken against Trump is just the fact, honestly, that I think they're institutionalists and they don't like the idea that there is reform happening to institutions. So I'll give you an example. I worked for Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney is of the belief that the smartest person in the room should always be making the decisions. That was the same thing with George H.W. Bush. That's why you got the Yaleys. That's why you got Skull and Bones, the head of the CIA, vice president of the United States. Mitt Romney cannot fathom why Donald Trump became president and he didn't. It breaks his worldview down. And I'm around conservatives that have that sense about them, that institutions and the smartest people in the room should always be making the decisions. And it's led to institutional bloat. It's led to these wars that we go to where we believe that we can bring democracy to the rest of the world and spend billions of dollars and sacrifice our sons and daughters. And it didn't result in anything. Sometimes they're just wrong. And in this case, these institutions need to be reformed. And that's why Donald Trump is so popular, is because he's bringing about those institutional reforms.
Tony, let me explain it this way. And this is why I understand what you're saying about the laundry list of Republicans that are saying Donald Trump can't be allowed back into the Oval Office. But Jeff is right that it will not matter. And this is the reason why, is that over the past 8 years, anybody that does not express fealty to Trump is tossed out of the party. So anybody that is not fealty to Trump, anybody that is not supporting him 110% is cast out as a rhino. So they are viewed as outsiders. Their opinions no longer matter inside the Republican tent. The Republican tent doesn't care about anybody that says, I support Kamala Harris. They're no longer part of the party. I mean, we have the Rhino Watch here in Colorado. That is evidence of that, as far as even going after longtime Republicans here in our state. The part where it can be persuadable is, again, those uninformed middle of the road voters that lean either left or lean either right. Those people that are unaffiliated, that aren't seeped in politics. That can be persuadable. Will it be? I'm not convinced, but it can be part of a narrative that could get someone who is not certain and has questions about what they saw the first time with a Trump presidency, whether or not that is the best option. And if you have that in front of them, you might have a chance. But inside of the Republican Party, those people don't matter anymore.
Thanks. I agree with your point. Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks,
All
Tony.
right,
It's always
thanks,
good to hear from you.
I think one of the most, to Tony's point, one of the strongest moments last night was this idea of bringing all these PhDs in. Do you remember when JD Vance addressed that? And he goes, look, we've been listening to those folks for a long time with regards to free trade issues and all that. And there's a palpable movement in this country against the elite and against the institutions. And you can call it populism if you want, but there's frustration about the direction of our healthcare, the fact that people are fatter, poorer, we're not having as many babies, we're more suicidal. They feel it in the cost of their groceries.
Yeah.
And where the institutional elites have put this country, people are frustrated with, and Donald Trump has tapped into that better than Kamala Harris has. So running back to, well, George H.W. Bush administration officials, it doesn't matter. It doesn't connect right now.
See, I can see your point, but I think it's actually that the Republican Party has had a push over the previous 8 to 10 years. Maybe I could go back another 15 in towards anti-intellectualism. And it would be when you talked about the blue blood country club Republicans being purged and looking at the grassroots. That, to me, is the start and the genesis of the anti-intellectualism that grew inside of the Republican Party. Now, the Democrats have some of it.
It's based in something. It's actually based in frustration. It's not like, well, we just decided we're not going to let the smart people hang out with us. Well, it's because
it is actually.
It's the
Yes,
wars in Iraq. It's the financial situations we find ourselves in. It's the idea of global free trade was going to make everyone's lives better when everything's gotten more expensive and people aren't making money. So they're frustrated.
People are making money. We have corporations right now making money hand over fist. We have broken records on Standard & Poor's.
Part of that institutionalism that people are frustrated with.
I know, but that's a separation based on economic wealth, and there's no solutions the Republicans have offered for that, nor are there many that the Democrats have. And it's an anti-intellectualism. I talk about the things like climate change. I talk about the idea of now free trade somehow doesn't work. I completely and totally disagree. Free trade does work. And what I want to say is reach into your pocket and grab that cell phone. You have something that several hundred years ago would have been considered magic. And the fact that the incremental price over the course of time hasn't gone crazy, that we're not paying $15,000 for a brand new iPhone, the fact that it is relatively affordable, but that is about free trade. That only happens with free trade. If we are manufacturing the iPhone here,
free trade debate, but I'm telling you
people don't
why,
like it. That's anti-intellectualism.
No,
because
I mean,
works.
Look,
I know, understand, but
you're looking at one aspect of the economy and going, see, because you're pointing out other aspects, you're being anti-intellectual. There's a lot of people suffering in this country right now. That we have record credit card debt, okay? And that's the basis of a lot of frustration. Pulling out a cell phone and saying, be happy with free trade because you have a cell phone. Well, so many other aspects of our life suck. But that is a level of elitism and intellectualism that people are getting frustrated with.
I understand they're frustrated with that, but I understand that the solution pushed forward by the anti-intellectualism inside the Republican Party are tariffs, which is going to make everything more expensive. If we want a consumer to spend thousands of extra dollars over the course of a year, tariffs. And that's the plan for the Republican Party to get the economy running again. That's anti-intellectualism because it will not work. Will not work.
I could easily argue just doing what we're doing now is just as anti-intellectual because it's just going to continue the problems that we're facing. But going back to why Republicans are different than they were 15, 20 years ago is frustration over institutions, frustration over health in this country. And Robert F. Kennedy has joined with Donald Trump and has built a populism that the Democrats can't figure out. And it's why the unions won't endorse Kamala Harris, and union members are tracking better with Donald Trump because they are tapping better into the frustration that Americans are facing. All right, we're just up against a break right now. I do want to tell you about Colorado's Best Roofing. If you're like me, you know that living in Colorado means dealing with unpredictable weather. Hail, snow, heavy winds, you name it, we've got it. That's why you need a roofing company you can trust, and that's Colorado's Best Roofing. They're local, family-owned, and have served the Denver area for over 12 years. They understand our unique climate and know how to build a roof that lasts. Whether you need a repair after a storm or a whole new roof, Colorado's Best Roofing has got you covered. Little jobs, big jobs, whole thing, they can take care of it for you. And here's what I really love. They offer a free, no-obligation inspection. They'll come out, take a look, give you an honest assessment. There's no pressure, no gimmicks, just straight talk from the pros. Plus, they work with your insurance company to make sure you get the coverage you deserve. So don't wait until the next big storm hits. Give Colorado's Best Roofing a call today at 303-797-7663. That's 303-797-7663. Or visit them at roofingcolorado.com. roofingcolorado.com. Trust the best. Colorado's Best Roofing. Want to get your thoughts? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KMU.
At this hour, I'm Christina Owayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. A nonprofit funded by billionaire George Soros was just given the green light to have licenses for 200 radio stations be transferred into its control. The panel's 2 Republican commissioners and the senior Republican on the committee opposed the transfer from the bankrupt radio broadcaster Audacity Inc. to the Fund for Policy Reform. The deal establishes a new board in which Alexander Soros, the son of George Soros, will serve as a member. The move was made about a week after members of the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability announced that they were investigating the transfer over concerns about foreign ownership, saying in a letter that the FCC appears to be bypassing procedures in an unprecedented way to benefit a Democrat mega donor acquiring a major equity stake in hundreds of local radio stations across the country. A silent video showed the moment a Kentucky judge was shot and killed in his chambers at the courthouse. Kentucky State Police Detective Clayton Stamper was the first witness to take the stand at Tuesday's probable cause hearing and testified to that video that showed the deadly shooting. Stamper testified the full video shows Steins using his own phone to make multiple calls, then using the judge's phone to make a call. The shooting followed. Sean Steins, who resigned from his position as sheriff on Monday, is being charged with the first-degree murder of Letcher County District Judge Kevin Mullins. Steins has pleaded not guilty. In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff Bill Show. We're talking all things the J.D. Vance, Tim Walz vice presidential debate that took place last night. A great call with Tony. Democrats can have Dick Cheney. Fine. Happy to have him. I like what Republicans have built with Elon Musk and Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy. It's a dynamic group. Prove me wrong. Maybe it's good for Democrats to have Dick Cheney. But after all the years they demonized him, it's weird. And that was a weird moment during the campaign. Tim Walz highlighting the fact they got Bernie Sanders, Dick Cheney, and Taylor Swift. That's an interesting dinner party. Let's talk to the phone lines here. Mary, Wyoming, good morning. Your thoughts on the debate last night?
Not much is on the debate. I think that one of the things on the thing about Dick Cheney and the rest of those rhinos, one of the things that frustrates me is not really ever addressed, is that when Trump took over, he relied on the Republican Party legislature, et cetera, to make recommendations for his cabinet. These are the, what do you call the, when you have, in other words, these were the people that did not want Trump in because he was going to kill the golden goose and did. These people had all kinds of contracts, relationships. They got to be millionaires from all the skullduggery that they had done. And then Trump is coming in and changing that. He didn't have any support, on the cabinet. And that leads into what, to me, you are addressing with on the issues on tariffs. One thing that's not talked about, and I'm going to give the example of Shark Tank. Shark Tank, most of us, a lot of America watch Shark Tank. They put those in entrepreneurs, and they would go ahead and, for the longest time, if you remember, Shark Tank started promoting taking those products and giving it to China to actually make. And nobody talks about what happened when all these American entrepreneurs sent their products over to China. China then stole their products and would make them there and send them back to us. And you call that fair trade?
I want to go back to what you were talking about with regards to his cabinet and why they don't support him. I have run into this in times of my life where, because I didn't attend the right schools, I didn't get the right degrees, I can tell I'm looked down upon by a certain class of people. And they believe that the people that come from the very best deserve to make all the decisions, and they have a internal, maybe not explicit, but a disdain for those people that build themselves up themselves. J.D. Vance is a very unique person in the sense that he kind of transcends those gaps, right? Here's a guy that grew up with a tremendous amount of problems, right? A mother addicted to drugs, father totally absent, very few opportunities, finds his way to Yale, is incredibly brilliant, gets the most prestigious degrees, and can debate on stage in a way that connects both with blue collar and with the white collar and is able to bridge those gaps. It doesn't bother me so much that somebody that came like Mitt Romney, that literally has as the highest degree you could possibly get from the most prestigious institutions, a Harvard law degree, a Harvard MBA, he's got it all, gets frustrated with Donald Trump because I'm like, yeah, I've run into those people before, and you don't really impress me that much when when Mitt Romney doesn't feel like he's taken as seriously by the likes of Donald Trump, he gets angry and takes it personally.
I think, though, that argument, in my opinion, is undercut when J.D. Vance has a degree from Yale and becomes a venture capitalist.
Right.
Also, and his running partner,
Isn't
his running partner also has an MBA from Wharton School of Business, inherited hundreds of millions of dollars from his father, and also basically has a gold toilet. I mean, this is not a guy who is struggled with the people. So I understand what you're saying about that.
I think he has more. Hang on a second.
When we're talking about the anti-intellectualism, here are two people that came from two of the scions of intellectual knowledge in our country, but they're accepted there. And again, that's why I say this is more about fealty to Trump than it is about actual principle.
No,
Yeah.
but when your cabinet officials get angry and storm off and I don't like Trump anymore, I don't think it's rooted in debates over particular issues. I often think it's the fact that Trump does what he wants to do and doesn't defer to the guys with the degrees all the time. And that's part of the reason why you get this kickback that happens from Washington, D.C. I've worked in that town. There's this belief that when you walk into the room, if you have the highest degrees, you should be taken seriously. And Trump sometimes just doesn't care what you have to say. And those guys flip out about it and take it all personally and run off. If you read Mitt Romney's Atlantic article from last week, there's no policy disagreements in there. There's no challenges to the democracy and the future of this country. It's entirely personal. And that's what happened to Liz Cheney too.
And part of that is that Trump's economic plan, especially go back to the tariffs, is bass backwards. And because he doesn't understand it. He was president for 4 years and still doesn't understand how tariffs work. That should be for anybody involved in the cabinet. Anybody sitting around there should be worried about that.
It's not working out great for the manufacturing and for the blue collar Americans. That whole free trade, and we'll let slave labor in China provide $3 widgets for us, has not worked out all that great for
using
Americans.
Slave labor, and then we consider that
far.
free trade.
So far, though, it has worked out fairly well. We can talk about barriers and things we can put up there. But Jeff, I mean, look around the computer screens that you have in front of you. The computers, most of the components that sit in front of you are manufactured in China or somewhere along the Asian Pacific Rim. And all of those components are affordable. And that's part of what happens. And that's what happens inside of free trade.
After taking,
go ahead.
I mean, what nobody talks about is that, again, using my example, they went over and took their widgets over there, and the Chinese copied it using slave labor and sells it back to us with a lot of our stuff. And that was what Trump was after. And then also Trump was using the tariffs to get those manufacturers to come back. He says, if you're going to go and use that slave labor for that, then you're either bringing those companies back or I'm going to put these tariffs on you.
Yeah, and that's the problem, Mary, with that. And the idea, I understand your idea in the tariffs, but here's the thing. There is nothing that prevents any Chinese company from going and buying a product anywhere else in the world, bringing it back to China and reverse engineering it. If we manufactured all that Shark's Tank stuff here in America, it doesn't. I'm sorry. Are you familiar with the fact that China doesn't give a damn about our patents? They don't care.
That's right.
We have. Wait, Mary, let me finish. So your complaint that we took the products to China and that's why they stole them is not correct. That's mostly irrelevant because they steal products that are manufactured in China and manufactured else in the world all the time. We can talk about increasing
but Bill,
the idea.
let
me finish this. But the idea, we can talk about increasing copyright law and enforcing it, but that's nothing that Trump talks about. He's not going to fix the problem. And him increasing tariffs, the problem with that is he doesn't understand how they work. He thinks it's a revenue stream that we are getting from another country. It's not. He is offering to pay for a whole bunch of stuff here in America, give people a whole lot of free stuff based on tariffs. And that's incorrect because it is American consumers that end up paying it.
Bill,
that should be a concern.
There is frustration in this country over the lack of manufacturing that's taking place all throughout the Rust Belt, all throughout those parts of the country. Okay.
It's about jobs for America.
And it's about jobs. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And if the argument is, well, the computer screen in front of you is cheaper, and
if I have to pay a few more dollars,
and your community is decimated because there's no manufacturing anymore in these towns, that doesn't fly.
Yeah, I know.
And
but
that is why Donald Trump is tapping into blue collar workers better than Kamala Harris is, because just running out there and going, well, this computer screen's cheaper because it comes from China and we have free trade. It doesn't help people in Ohio and Pennsylvania.
And this goes back to the anti-intellectualism, because we have assumed this based on our emotions. What we don't know, which is actually a fact, is that there are more manufacturing jobs been created under the Biden administration than were the Trump administration. There are more manufacturing jobs are created under the Biden-Harris administration than there were under the Trump administration.
We've started to go to war against China on these trade issues.
But
and
your
that
argument
didn't happen until Trump's first term.
But no, we did go for it. We did have some stuff earlier. But the issue is your argument was to go back to this guy who got less manufacturing jobs. You're saying that he's better on it, but the current administration has created more manufacturing jobs. The goal that you want
under the
is
idea of free
happening
trade, I'm pretty sure Joe Biden wants the same tariffs that Donald Trump
under
does.
this, I disagree with Biden on the tariffs, but under this administration, there are more manufacturing jobs. So if we complain about the fact that we're losing, them,
China.
Yeah,
he was the first.
He was the first to take on this free
people
trade
complained about
stuff.
that long before that.
Mary,
that's
I really
not true.
Mary, I'm with you on this. I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. We just got to get to all these different calls. Going back to the original point of this discussion was that there is a blue collar renaissance that's taking place in this country that Republicans are tapping into, that Mitt Romney and John McCain could have never done it. Donald Trump has done it. And going back to Tony's original call, what an administration official from George H.W. Bush's administration has to say about Donald Trump doesn't matter in light of the fact of this change that's taken place. And I like a Republican Party that's more tapped into blue collar workers. I just think it's a better party. All right. I want to talk to you all about my friends over at Mountain High Appliance. They've cooked up some tasty deals for your kitchen. Now, for a limited time, receive up to a $3,000 rebate with the purchase of qualifying GE Cafe appliances. Enjoy the Mountain High Appliance price match guarantee and special financing options. Visit one of their 4 locations for all the details and upgrade your kitchen with GE Cafe appliances. In Denver at East 64th, Littleton, Louisville, and Glenwood Springs. Mountain High Appliance. Experience the difference. We'll get to the calls next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. The Southeast United States was drenched with more than 40 trillion gallons of rain last week from Hurricane Helene, something that stunned experts, with the head of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration saying it's something he hasn't seen in 25 years of working at the Weather Service. The sheer volume that fell from the sky is enough to fill more than 60 million Olympic-sized swimming pools. The damage from the hurricane is being described as apocalyptic, as entire neighborhoods have been destroyed, tens of thousands of people were left without power, and as of Tuesday, more than 130 people have died, according to officials. Claudia Sheinbaum has been sworn in as Mexico's first female president, riding the enthusiasm over her predecessor's social programs, but also facing challenges that include stubbornly high levels of violence. After a smiling Sheinbaum took the oath of office on the floor of Congress, legislators shouted, "President." The 62-year-old Jewish scientist turned politician receives a country with a number of immediate problems, also including a sluggish economy, unfinished building programs, rising debt, and the hurricane-battered resort city of Acapulco. A chemical plant fire southeast of Atlanta is still causing trouble 2 days later. Authorities told residents of the city's eastern suburbs on Tuesday to shelter in place again if a chemical cloud moves over their neighborhood. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Aguayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. The morning after a historic debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. Who do you think won? What do you think of the debate? The issues covered. We're talking all that today with you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Let's go to the phone lines. Winston Castle Rock. Good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Good show over there. I would like to address one issue that came up during the debate: leadership. I was in Korea. I've been in Korea a few times doing different jobs. And President Trump was the only president who was able to stop Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, from launching missiles and rockets for over 60 years. Since 1984, ICBMs. He was the only one counting Department of State secretaries and generals. That just by telling Kim Jong-un that he was going to use United States force to eliminate him and to destroy him. So, in contrast, we had Joe Biden, Kamala Harris doing the withdrawal from Afghanistan, where 13 of our U.S. service members died, when every single person who has deployed into the Middle East knows how to close the base. We have SOPs, we have cookie cutter procedures to do this well. And Biden, Harris, and all his generals washed their hands, and until today, nobody has paid for, nobody has been fired. That is two examples of good and bad leadership. During this debate,
Winston, let's talk about that for a second. Let's go to the Afghanistan one, and it was Donald Trump that negotiated the exit plan and the date. He told them when he was going to leave, and then under his administration, he closed the other air bases down, and that left the U.S. And again, it was a mismanaged, evacuation plan, but it left only one way out. So where do you think the potential attack was going to come? At the one place that was left because of how Trump closed bases. Again, I'm not saying that Trump was responsible. Biden mismanaged it, but saying that Trump has no responsibility for setting up a timeline. You never tell your opponent when you're going to leave. That is strategically an awful move, but he did that. And the other one is you talked about North Korea.
Hang on, wait, no, in 2019. Did you expect them to just leave one day?
Yes, that's what you do. You just pick up and go. You don't negotiate with them. You don't negotiate with them. It's the same thing when Vivek Ramaswamy said, "Oh, China, I'm going to be tough with you. You can't touch Taiwan for 4 years, but after 4 years, hands off." China is just going to wait for the 4 years. You don't put a timeline in that type of withdrawal. The other thing is in 2019, after the apparent agreement for North Korea to stop missile testing, they tested missiles under the Trump administration. And that's post agreement to stop testing missiles. So they did test missiles after the apparent agreement.
Those missiles stopped. Now,
no, they didn't, Winston. They didn't. They tested them in 2019.
The Afghanistan withdrawal follows into Biden, because even if he had seen something wrong during the agreement for this agreement that Trump did with the Taliban, Biden could have stopped. He did not have to leave Afghanistan. The problem was not when we were going to leave. The problem was how it was done. Everybody knows how it is done. From the lowest level of an enlisted soldier to the highest officer, how it's been done. I was part of the team who closed 10 bases in Afghanistan, and we never had any issues. This was different. Biden and his generals failed to our service members and the country how to do it.
Yeah, and Winston, many of those same generals were in charge in the other closing bases that you said went just fine. Yes, I say the Biden administration made a complete and total mess. The way in which they evacuated, not anticipating the choke point and getting people out. There were a laundry list of mistakes made during that incident, but some of them were set up based on choices the Trump administration made. I'm not sitting here and saying Trump's responsible for it. I am saying that Biden's administration is responsible for it, but saying that Trump was this great leader and all of a sudden it came in and went south with Biden, that's not correct, and neither is it correct about the missile tests.
All right. Winston, any final words?
Well, during the debate, I think the J.D. Vance did a good job for supporting the Trump, bringing Trump record. And when Tim Walz started talking about how old Trump was, I think that Tim Walz himself doesn't look well.
Hey, Winston, got a question for you. Did J.D. Vance win any votes for the Trump campaign last night? And do you think that Harris lost any votes? Just real quickly.
I think J.D. Vance is going to bring more votes, especially among women, based on what he said.
Yeah,
that's fair, man. Thanks. I
he
appreciate
looked
it.
good. He looked youthful. He looked in control. J.D. Vance with those steely blue eyes.
Yeah,
My
thanks
goodness.
for the call, Winston. Very intelligent. Call back. I like that.
Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Coming up next, we're going to get updates on Israel. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on this Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024, the morning after Historic debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, and J.D. Vance mopping the floor, doing a great job of representing the conservative worldview and helping the Trump campaign, I think, appeal to moderates and independents. We'll see how it plays out in about 30 days, but that was a good night for Republicans last night. We'd love to get your calls and thoughts on this, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Joshua Sharf, fellow from the Independence Institute, is going to join us to give us an update on what happened yesterday in the midst of that vice presidential debate that took place. Nearly 200 rockets fired from Iran at Israel. We'll get an update from them in just a second, but let's dive in first to news and comment from Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. It's 55 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 89 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story
from Television City in Hollywood.
Oh, man, the great actor John Amos has passed away at the age of 84. He was known for his roles in Good Times, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Coming to America, The West Wing. He received an Emmy nomination for his performance in the 1977 ABC miniseries Roots. His son announced that he died of natural causes in L.A. Amos was born in Newark, grew up in East Orange, and formerly lived in Tewksbury before moving to West Cliff, Colorado. He played football at Colorado State and had tryouts with the Chiefs and the Broncos. Man, one of my favorites. John Amos, dead at the age of 84. The day after the vice presidential debate, and one guy looked and sounded very comfortable, confident, and reassuring.
And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again.
And the other guy did not. With Vance, well, he's been answering questions from reporters and honing his skills. And Tim Walz, he's been running from the media like Kamala Khan. You could hear it in his voice.
October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
And he did what he could to take shots at DJT.
His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance. What we've seen out of Vice President Harris is we've seen steady leadership. We've seen a calmness that is able to draw on the coalitions to bring them together.
What we've seen her do is hide from journalists and the media and the press. Here's what some of the mainstream media thought.
There is no doubt in my mind, however Governor Walz did in terms of sincerity, that Vance won this debate.
Does Governor Walz have a problem with the truth? No.
They were talking at one point, Vance wanted to correct something about how Haitians got into this country. And he was right. And the moderators wouldn't let him correct it. It's very interesting.
But at the beginning, the two issues driving the campaign right now are Harris has a big deficit on the economy. Harris has a big deficit on immigration. And Republicans were happy tonight and Democrats a little bit nervous that on those two issues, Vance carried it.
And there you have it. Rescue teams still searching for survivors in North Carolina towns devastated by flooding from Hurricane Helene. FEMA rescue teams from around the country, including right here in Colorado, helping North Carolina National Guard locate stranded people in the flooded mountain towns in the western portions of the state. State officials say over 500 people have been rescued so far. SpaceX founder Elon Musk has agreed to use dozens of Starlink receivers and terminals to help residents in North Carolina regain access to the internet due to Helene DJT.
And I called Elon, and they were having a hard time getting in. It's a hot thing. And Elon immediately got involved. And we have the most incredible that they did in one day. They got tremendous communication. They went from literally no communication to tremendous. So I want to thank Elon Musk for what he's done in North
Carolina. We haven't talked a lot about Sean Combs, but the attorney's Busby Law in Houston is just shocking.
We talk about the ages of the victims when the conduct occurred. It's shocking. Our youngest victim at the time of the occurrence was 9 years old.
No way.
We have an individual who was 14
Isn't that
years
horrible?
old. We have one who was 15. 25 of the 120 individuals who are plaintiffs in these cases were minors at the time of the acts complained of. The time frame of the acts complained of is very wide. The conduct at issue spans from the years 1991 all the way till this year, 2024. If you wonder why there are so many alleged victims, that's your answer. We're talking about more than 25 years of this type of conduct.
It's horrific.
Gosh,
just disgusting.
My goodness. I started to go through the indictment list, but I did not see 9.
Can you believe that? And then remember this video? I saw it years ago and I thought it was sick, but here, I'll play a little bit of it.
Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours? Right now, he's having 48 hours.
This is him with Justin Bieber, that video.
They're having the times of their lives, like where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose. But,
oh my God!
It's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. I have been given custody of him. He signed to Usher. I had legal guardianship of Usher when he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So and we're gonna go full crazy.
Wow. I mean, it's just frightening.
And you've seen sides of Justin Bieber that indicate something happened. Some form of abuse happened. I've seen him break down.
Yeah. No, I think his life has really changed. I think he's found God. From what I saw, yeah, I hope so too, because he was a victim. And Sean Combs is sick and horrific. What he's done to these children, allegedly. But you look back at that video and he's standing there with Bieber and just taking advantage of him.
Grooming. Man, it's
absolutely
just terrible.
And we just let it fly. Oh, because it's P. Diddy, Puffy, whatever your freaking name is. It's horrible. So hopefully this law firm is able to do what they need to do. But man, you just look at the numbers and age is just so depressing.
I saw Kevin Sorbo tweeted last night, I wasn't blacklisted from Hollywood. I left Hollywood because they're all a bunch of pedos.
Boy,
and you see stuff like this and you're like,
yeah, we have no idea. And then we want the borders to be open. There's so much slavery, sex slavery, everything going on at the border, enabling what is it, 300,000 kids? We have no idea where they are.
Yeah, that came out in the debate last night.
Right. It did. Okay. I missed that one, but man, we just got to pray for all these kids. And now a lot of them are adults. So see what happens. 52 in Littleton, 54 in North Glen, 55 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continuing once again. John Amos
from Television City in Hollywood.
He has passed away at the age of 84. It's Wednesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Mostly sunny, dry days, mostly clear, cool nights, and temperatures that'll be bouncing up and down a little bit here in Denver between now and the end of the weekend, but still no precipitation coming. Very warm today. Highs in the upper 80s, lows tonight near 50. Cooler tomorrow. Temperatures back down into the 70s, but then into the 80s, dry and sunny Friday through Sunday. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Fired roughly 200 ballistic missiles at Israel. An escalation that risks a wider war in the Middle East days after Israel killed the leader of the Iran-backed Hezbollah and sent troops into Lebanon. Israel's military signaled it would retaliate, though it didn't provide details on how or when it would respond. The Pentagon said that Israel intercepted the majority of the missiles and that there was minimal damage on the ground. Iran, which promised a, quote, crushing response, unquote, if Israel retaliated, canceled flights across the country until mid-morning on Wednesday. Joining us to provide some analysis on this, good friend of the show, Joshua Sharf. He's a fellow with the Independence Institute. Joshua, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me.
So, yeah, you're probably like the rest of us. We're getting ready for work yesterday, and then the news starts to break of nearly 200 ballistic missiles being sent from Iran. I imagine you spent time in Israel. What was your response seeing all that yesterday?
Well, it was the same response I think that most people have. You know, we have who and maybe a little more, but people who have friends over there, people who have family. We don't have any family, but I have a fair number of friends over there. So asking them to check in versus WhatsApp or giving them a call and making sure they're okay. You know, a lot of them immediately, of course, went to their secure rooms. You know, when we were visiting some friends in Los Angeles at the end of last year, I went to one of the synagogues there, and the rabbi ended his talk by saying, you know, may we merit to live in days soon seeing open miracles. Well, here we are, because the fact that no one except, well, there was, and you don't want to discount that, obviously, but only one person was killed on the ground, and he by shrapnel, meaning that it wasn't like a bomb that fell on him. The poor guy was just walking around out in Jericho, and the remains of a rocket or a missile that had been shot at fell on him. So thank God. I mean, that was the only death from all of that. And the 3-layer system, people talk about Iron Dome. There's a mid-tier called David's Sling, which hits sort of mid-range missiles and drones and so forth. And then there's the Arrow system, which is designed to hit long-range ballistic missiles that come in from exo-atmospherically, and it's able to intercept them as well. And the fact that those 3 layers operated and coordinated and were able to do the target selection in such a way that almost anything that hit in an open field or in the ocean, and wasn't shot at, and so it was still able to do that target selection and nobody on the ground except for that one poor fella was killed. I mean, the Iranians lost 5 guys launching it when one of their launchers blew up. They killed more Iranians than they did Israelis.
And you know what happened with the one missile that did get through, hit a Palestinian dude in Gaza. So one person that died in the attack that Iran launched was a guy, is Palestinian in Gaza. Yeah,
I'm not laughing at the death, but I'm amazed at the ingenuity of the Jews and of Israel. All right, so let's just give people a little timeline here. Since October 7th, Hamas has been decimated. Hezbollah decides to pick a fight. That doesn't work out too well for them. The leader of Hezbollah is now dead. You have the pagers and the walkie-talkies that all blew up and identified all those that are involved with Hezbollah. You had the guy that was in Iran that was killed by Israel I think he was a member of Hezbollah as well. You have
Haniya. He was the head of the political head of Hamas.
Right. Israel has struck deep within enemy territory at this point. I mean, personally, you hit the dudes with pagers on their belts, and then you assassinate. Israel assassinates the guys in inside Iran. Iran tries to respond with missiles. They blow up their own guys. I mean, it is amazing how brilliant Israel is. I'm just caught off guard with how smart they are.
Well, this hasn't exactly worked out the way that Iran had hoped it would, I guess. But the thing to remember about the Hezbollah, what's going on with Hezbollah is that not just the pagers and the walkie-talkies, which was a phenomenal operation that'll be studied in intelligence circles it's already legendary. But the military response, then following up with that, hitting essentially the entire command structure of Hezbollah, capping that off, if you will, with by capping Nasrallah and the rest of the political leadership. Because remember, they were there to watch Bibi's speech, and they figured, well, while he's out of the country, he's not going to order any sort of attack. Surprise. And so that whole operation, remember that, plus the ongoing destruction of Hezbollah's missile arsenal, and now the much more dangerous and potentially much more dangerous and potentially deadly ground assault that's begun to clear out Hezbollah south of the river, was something Israel has planned for nearly 20 years. Just in general terms, obviously the intelligence that they're getting is remarkable. And I think one of the things, so talking about what makes this sort of an operation work is having intelligence on the ground that tells you where people are, when they are, or where stuff is that can be difficult to move around and without being detected. And that comes from Lebanese, not just Israelis, but Lebanese on the ground who are willing to work with the Israelis. And so all credit to them for being willing to stand up against Hezbollah and wanting to rid their country of this cancer that Iran has planted there.
Talking with Joshua Sharf, he's a fellow at the Independence Institute and has spent time in Israel. We're analyzing what happened yesterday. Nearly 200 ballistic missiles fired at Israel. All right, so what happens next, do you think? How do other Islamic countries that were getting involved with the Abrahamic Accords respond to all this? I'll be honest, it doesn't seem like some of the other more moderate Islamist countries seem all that interested in defending Iran at this point.
Well, remember, there's that whole Sunni-Shia breakdown. But more than that, the Arabs, the Iranians are not Arab. The Arabs don't particularly like the Iranians. They are, when this happened earlier, if you remember, there was an earlier barrage of Iranian missiles. And somebody, I'm pretty sure it was Netanyahu, uttered the phrase, Israel along with her Arab allies, which, if you're Gen X, that's just a mind-blowing phrase. Israel along with her Arab allies. And so, Jordan obviously doesn't want to although some of the rockets, some of the missiles landed there. I think what happens is last night, apparently the U.S. talked Israel out of responding immediately, and they're coordinating a response. So that may be may not be too happy about that, but remember, Israel is still dependent on the U.S. for both for defensive missiles, for offensive ammunition, and to some degree for the U.S.'s ability itself, with what it has in the region, in theater, to be able to defend Israel against attacks as well. So some of that may just be bowing to reality, but they're putting together what they're calling a substantial response, not just what happened last time, which was a few rockets to show, well, we're still here, and by the way, you didn't kill anyone last time either. They're putting together a much more serious response, and the feeling is that may include oil facilities, that may include the nuclear facility. Although, again, if you're paying attention, and not everyone follows it quite so closely, but A few weeks ago, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, there was an explosion inside one of the Iranian nuclear facilities. The Iranians put it down to a gas explosion. Nobody really believes that. And so it may be that there's already been significant damage to the nuclear program with that. We just don't know. There's also some discussion that they may hit the anti-aircraft sites to make follow-up attacks more, leave Iran more defenseless if there's another round of this. But everyone seems to think that the oil facilities, which are Iran's lifeline, are not long for this world. The Iranians were in Tehran. There are pictures of people in cars, backed up a mile, I don't know, trying to get to a gas station to fuel up to get out of Dodge, because they knew that there wasn't going to be much coming down the pipeline. I guess, and that, of course, that was Jimmy Carter's birthday. So I guess it's appropriate that they honored Jimmy Carter's birthday.
100 years old.
They honored his birthday by having gas lines. So I guess
in Iran. Yeah. Oil facilities are flammable, so it's an easy target, right? Talking with Joshua Sharf, he's a fellow over at the Independence Institute, great think tank here in town, analyzing what happened yesterday and Israel's response. I think there could be any potential attack from Iran on America or Western Europe.
Probably not Western Europe, but there are American, contra what Kamala Harris said, there are, in fact, American soldiers in harm's way over there. And Iran has already said that they could be targets. So that's clear. And then the other question that comes up is, what was shot yesterday wasn't drones. There don't appear to have been drones. There don't appear to have been cruise missiles. It's possible that what Iran was doing was sending some of its older stuff, it's less accurate stuff, in hopes of depleting Israel's defenses, and now it's got and it was holding back the really good stuff. So that's a fear, and that's part of the reason as well that Israel wants to coordinate a response with the U.S. to make sure that we're there to help them, in terms of defense, and that's obviously a major concern as well. What do they have left, and what does Iran do next as a counter move? So if anything. So it probably rules out something spectacular like a decapitation strike, an attack on purely political targets. But one hopes that whatever happens, whatever Israel does, one really hopes that it becomes a signal in some sense for the Iranian people, the Iranian opposition, to maybe finally do something about these guys.
Joshua Sharf, fellow with the Independence Institute, joining Jeff and Bill live, talking about the Iran response to Israel taking out the supreme leader of Hezbollah. I'm kind of curious how we would divide up teams. Joshua, what do you think's going to happen inside of the Middle East? Because I think Iran is making a strategic mistake. They are overestimating their support in the Arab world. You started to go that direction early on. If Iran tries to escalate this conflict, how do you see the sides breaking down? Who either does support Israel, maybe in name only, or at least just stays on the sidelines during a potential conflict between Iran and Israel? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think most of the Arab countries stay on the sidelines, except for the ones in the line of fire. Like I say, Jordan may put up, will probably try to shoot down anything that comes that's within whatever reach of whatever anti-missile capability it has. Will try to shoot down what comes over its territory. Saudi doesn't really have a whole lot. Most of the countries that have any capability are not really in the line of fire anyway. So Iran's not going to be attacking Saudi directly. So they'll probably stay out of it for the most part. The other thing to remember, so you have Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, at this point, Yemen, Egypt will stay out of it. The thing to remember is that those other countries, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, they are not really functioning countries at this point. They're lines on a map. And what Iran has is essentially tributaries to Iran, mostly in the Shia, or in the case of Syria, the Alawite areas, who are loyal to Tehran. They're not loyal to whatever the country is that they're nominally located in. So to sort of break it down by country may not make a whole lot of sense, but to break it down by military capability in a country certainly does. Syria probably has some launchers located there. Iraq is probably more concerned with targeting the Syrian, the Iranian loyalists in Iraq are probably more interested in hitting whatever U.S. targets are there. Lebanon is already fully engaged, so whatever's going on there is going to continue going on there, and then the Houthis are going to continue firing missiles. One of the things that the Israelis did the other day, again, that kind of was quieter, was they hit a major oil facility again in a more substantial way in Yemen. The idea to prevent the Iranians from delivering more missiles to the Houthis. So, what the people who really have the capability of putting an end to that are the U.S. And what's been dismaying, of course, is that the U.S. has contented itself with essentially playing javelin catcher against the Houthis rather than targeting facilities that they have inland that could really threaten the grip on the country. But that's a policy decision.
Yeah, it is. And Lebanon's reaction has been surprising to me. The fact that they pulled military back from the border and basically allowed Israel to cross and said, "Oh, here, you go find the guys." I like what you said about
you got the Hezbollah. You're on your own.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, wow, okay. And I like what you said about Syria, because I think you're right that the major players are going to stay on the sidelines. Syria, to me, is a wild card because there are a lot of Syrians that are mad at Hezbollah for what happened during the Syrian civil war. There are some things inside of Hezbollah walking in there and taking people and, doing some really awful stuff. Things that we saw Hamas do to Israel citizens, Hezbollah did to Syrian citizens. So there's a real pushback, I think, potentially inside of some camps in Syria against larger support of Iran. And that's going to be really interesting. But hey, thank you for the time.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I want to just if we have just a moment.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I wanted to do two other things. Number one, first of all, of course, we're coming up on Rosh Hashanah, and that's when we generally take stock, begin the process of taking stock of ourselves and the year. Of course, it's a year that began functionally with the attacks on October 7th, and now is ending with a strong and hopefully successful Israeli response against that. But more importantly, we can build high walls in the terms of missile defense, but ultimately Israel is going to have to deal with whatever its internal political problems are that gave the encouragement to the enemies to think that this was a good time to attack. And so hopefully there'll be a little bit of internal assessment that will happen there, and make the country stronger as a result in that way. The other thing is, if anyone is looking for organizations to give to, I have two suggestions. One, of course, is Magen David Adom, which is the equivalent of the Israeli equivalent of the Red Cross, and the other is a group called Unity Warriors that provides trauma kits both to military units and to civilian units inside of Israel. Against so that when people are attacked, this is the first line of medical assistance, and those have saved many lives. So Unity Warriors and Magen David Adom, two good places to give if people are looking for a place to donate.
Joshua Sharf, fellow with the Independence Institute, providing analysis for us on the attack that took place by Iran yesterday. Nearly 200 ballistic missiles sent towards Israel. Joshua, thank you so very much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate the time.
Look, in a second, we're going to host Rabbi Hillel Goldberg of Intermountain Jewish News as well to get his insights on that. So you're going to want to stick with us. But if you're dealing with that joint pain, you don't have to keep living with it. Real lasting relief is possible with the help from QC Kinetics. People are getting their lives back, getting their mobility back, thanks to QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in cellular therapies that can revitalize your joints. I'm talking about advanced regenerative medicine using your own body's healing properties, highly concentrated and carefully placed in your achy joints. Back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, these are cutting-edge treatments that require no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. It's a quick in-office procedure that can get you moving again. These protocols have been developed by medical professionals and under the leadership of Dr. Mitchell Scheinkamp, a a former orthopedic surgeon and a pioneer in critical regenerative medicine. Listen, is arthritic joint pain keeping you from doing the things you love? Pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder? You owe it to yourself to learn more. Call QC Kinetics today for a free consultation. 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986 with locations in Aurora, Superior, Highlands Ranch, and Colorado Springs. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Awayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Jeep is recalling more than 194,000 plug-in hybrid SUVs worldwide because they can catch fire with the ignition turned off. In addition, Jeep is urging owners not to charge the SUVs and to park them outdoors and away from structures until they are repaired. The recall covers the Wrangler 4xE from the 2020 through 2024 model years, as well as the Grand Cherokee 4xE from 2022 through 2024. Most of the recalled SUVs are in North America. Stellantis, which makes Jeeps, said affected customers will be notified when they can schedule service, and the risk of fire is reduced when the battery charge is depleted. A routine review of customer data led to an investigation that found 13 fires with 2 injuries. Stellantis estimates that 5% of the SUVs have the problem. Widespread devastation left behind by Hurricane Helene is being witnessed across the South in a wasteland of splintered houses, crushed cargo containers, and mud-covered highways in one of the worst storms in U.S. history. The death toll has now topped 130. In fact, at least 133 deaths in 6 southeastern states have been attributed to the storm that inflicted damage from Florida's Gulf Coast to the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia. During a briefing this week, Homeland Security suggested that as many as 600 people hadn't been accounted for as of Monday afternoon, saying some might be dead. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Awayo, Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Gosh, we're only 5 days from the 1 year anniversary of Hamas's attack.
Jeez, that's crazy to think about. That's
1
really crazy.
year, how much has changed. And I remember that was it'll be a Monday. Yeah, it was a Sunday. Was it a Sunday morning?
Yeah, I think it was a Sunday morning. Yeah. Yeah, because I think they went after based on, it was either Sunday or Saturday, because they went after it was on a day of rest. I remember them going after it. Yeah.
So it would have been on
but
Saturday,
I don't remember the exact,
but it would have been Sunday in America. But you just remember seeing those videos, those girls.
Oh, it's awful.
Just with their legs broken and assaulted and drugged through and thrown into the back of these trucks like they're some type of animal trophy.
That's the
This is
part
horrible.
And that's the part for me when I get into conversations with anybody where they say, we have to understand what the Palestinians were going through, etc. Hang on. Explain to me why Hamas started with civilian targets. One of the first places they walked into was a concert. I can understand that they're
pretty
mad.
personal for you.
And it is really personal. And I can understand them being upset and going after military targets. I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying at least we can reasonably come to a conclusion as far as why that attack happened. But you go after civilians in this way? No. You have eroded any and all moral authority you claim to have.
Right. Wow. And I was looking up, if you go to Intermountain Jewish News, they have a list of commemorations that are taking place.
Oh, nice. That's good.
All weekend long, all over the Western United States. Because you remember, Intermountain Jewish News is all the Western kind of parts, the mountain regions. And so here in Denver as well, there's some big ones happening to commemorate, ones that are family friendly. So bring families. This is the one I'm looking at. This is October 7th, Monday night, 4:30 to 6, JCC Denver. Commemorative activity as we come together as a community 1 year after the events of October 7th. Bring your families, children, parents, partners, friends, as we sing and create a collaborative art project together. Well, that sounds cool. Drinks and snacks will be provided. The program is free and open to all, although registration is required to attend. So if you go to Intermountain Jewish News, you can see all of those on their calendar there. Great resource, Intermountain Jewish News. Let's go to Melissa Lakewood. Good morning, Melissa. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Morning.
Good morning. So my question was, or maybe we can discuss it, but isn't Israel entitled to protection even more than Ukraine? Like, it was one thing when the Houthis and the Hezbollah guys with rocket launchers are firing on them, but now this is Iran, the country. Like, didn't they cross a line with that?
So why would you say they have more protection? What didn't Russia cross a line with Ukraine?
Israel and NATO? Isn't Israel and NATO?
I don't
and
think
Ukraine
so.
isn't.
Is Israel and NATO? I don't think they are.
I have to think about that for a sec. Give me a sec.
Yeah. Is Israel on NATO? I don't know. I think that's Israel was designated a major non-NATO ally in 1987 by U.S. President Ronald Reagan. So, no, they are not a part of NATO. They've cooperated with NATO in areas of technology, counterterrorism, and other parts, but no, they're not a direct partner.
I just don't understand why everyone thinks like Ukraine automatically gets protected, but Israel is a different story. I don't understand why.
Well, I definitely agree with you that they're different stories, but America is definitely defending Israel. And I actually think because Israel's not a part of NATO and the existential threat that Islamists tried to bring towards Israel, right? The idea of we're going to wipe Israel off the map. We don't want Jews anywhere in the Middle East. And in fact, they're not just going to stop there. They want Israel's eliminated from the earth. I think it makes it all more imperative that the United States stand with Israel and defend them because they're absolutely critical to even the livelihood of Jews, but to Western civilization itself.
Well, and then we don't have to do it if they do it. If they take out the nuclear facilities, then we don't have to get involved.
You're exactly right, Melissa. I appreciate the call.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you
so much. Melissa's line will be open 303-696-1971. Joining us on the Jeff and Bill Show, Rabbi Hillel Goldberg, the editor of the Intermountain Jewish News. Happy Rosh Hashanah to you, Rabbi. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you very much. I want to say that in our tradition, we believe that everybody is written in one of the books on Rosh Hashanah. So we hope that you and your listeners will be written in the books of life and sealed there.
Amen to that. I agree with you on that. Yesterday, a rough day. You have family members in Israel as Iran launched nearly 200 ballistic missiles in your direction. Fortunately, it looks like not many people were injured, but can you give us an update on what you heard yesterday from those that were in Israel?
Well, my son was in a bomb shelter, and he left, and there must have been some instruction to leave. He goes outside, looks up in the sky, sees all these missiles, and runs right back to the bomb shelter. That's one son. Another son sends me an email which says, "We're living in miraculous times."
Everybody ended up being okay?
Meaning that, there is this tremendous barrage of missiles, but against it, there's this tremendous sophisticated technology called Iron Dome, invented by Israelis, that takes them down before they land and cause harm. That's if they're aimed at civilian locations. Sometimes they're just landing in empty spaces, empty land.
So we only got a few minutes with you. Give us a sense of what you think Israel's response is going to be. We heard briefly from Joshua Sharf earlier in the hour that the United States is asking Israel to temper back, not respond immediately. Do you have a sense from your sources of what Israel may do to respond?
I think it's less likely that this time Israel's going to listen to that request for two reasons. Number one, it didn't work. Last April 13th, Iran fired many missiles at Israel, and Biden said, quote, "take the win." That is to say, do nothing. Israel did nothing. And what did they get in return? More of the same. That's not going to continue. That's number one. But more dramatically than that, and even more to the point, is that Israel has not listened to the Biden administration to restrain its attacks on Hezbollah. Now, had Israel listened to that advice, Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, would still be alive. All of his commanders would still be alive. All of their precision-guided missiles would still be in place. All of their anti-ship missiles would still be in place. So for not listening to that advice, to seek a diplomatic solution, to use the administration's term, Israel has destroyed a good deal of that evil force, which, please remember, killed many Americans. Hezbollah has American blood on its hand, and in fact, there's a price on these Hezbollah terrorists had from the United States of America, which never carried out anything, but Israel did, and it did because it didn't listen to the advice for restraint, and therefore the Middle East is a much safer place without all those weapons and without all those terrorists in place. So I think that Israel is going to take the lesson and say it's time to go after the nuclear facilities, or at least the oil facilities in Iran. Please keep in mind, you read these stories that say, generally speaking, oh, Israel bombed Beirut and killed Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah. Didn't work exactly in that very general way. Israel had in its possession bunker buster bombs. They dropped these bombs, which were timed to go off sequentially. That's how they got to the bottom of the headquarters, which was many, many stories below ground in Beirut. That's how they got the headquarters of Hezbollah. So that is to say, there is weaponry that is capable of getting to the foundations of the nuclear program in Iran. And if that's destroyed, the whole world, certainly including the United States of America, is a much, much safer place.
Rabbi, I agree with you entirely. In fact, I believe Israel's reminding the world what it means to win a war. And I'm glad they're ignoring the advice coming from the Biden administration and making the Middle East a better place by getting rid of these terrorists, these people that attacked innocent civilians on October 7th, including Americans, and continue to keep people in hostage. Rabbi, we've just got to wrap up here. Rabbi Hillel Goldberg, final word to people as they prepare for the 1-year anniversary of October 7th. What should Coloradans be reflecting on?
Number one, we need to continue to pray. We have seen, if nothing else, on October 7th, that the world is not totally within our control. We need to continue to rely on a higher power, number one. Number two, we need to realize there is such a thing as evil. There is such a thing as people who mean to kill, to commit rape, to commit atrocities, to burn people alive. We need to acknowledge that. We cannot live in a fairy tale world. When we acknowledge that, we can conquer it. We can find out or discover strategies to conquer it. And that makes us a safer place. And the less evil there is in the world, the better world it is for all of us.
Amen to that. Rabbi Hillel Goldberg, the editor of the Intermountain Jewish News, a great resource, especially if you wanted to participate in commemorating and standing with our Jewish friends on the anniversary of October 7th. They have a whole calendar listed there of ways you can be involved. IJN.com. Get a subscription there today. Great reporting on what's happening out of Israel coming from the Intermountain Jewish News. IJN.com. A very blessed Rosh Hashanah to you, Rabbi Goldberg. Thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
You're welcome, and a blessed New Year to you.
Speaking of other great events coming up, Colorado Christian University invites you to an exclusive luncheon and lecture on Friday, November 15th. Friday, November 15th, featuring the 48th Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, and his wife, former Second Lady Karen Pence. In partnership with the Centennial Institute and CCU President Eric Hogue, this event offers a unique opportunity to engage in conversation with Vice President Pence, one of America's most dedicated public servants, sharing his insights on the future of the conservative movement. Be among the first to experience the new Armstrong Center as CCU launches its President's Speaker Series on this historic occasion. Go to ccu.edu/Pence to get tickets and learn more. Limited tickets are available for breakfast with Karen Pence, lunch with Mike Pence, and morning and evening lectures. Throughout the day, you'll engage in conversation on leadership, faith, and service with these distinguished guests. Please join CCU on November 15th for these events with Mike and Karen Pence. Go to ccu.edu/Pence to get tickets and learn more. That's ccu.edu/Pence. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Great conversation with two of our Jewish friends, Joshua Sharf from the Independence Institute and Rabbi Hillel Goldberg of the Intermountain Jewish News in response to yesterday's crazy 200 ballistic missiles launched from Iran to Israel. I've been to Israel just once, but I've always found the fact that these folks in Israel just live their lives in light of these threats all the time. They go to school, they plant farms, they build businesses, they run companies, all while nearby countries sending 200 ballistic missiles at you. I don't know if we're tough enough to deal with that in America. I think we'd collapse, fold in, and they just go about it. It's just part of living in that country, part of the country. Israel's a beautiful country, by the way. Great country. If you've never had a chance to go there, you got to get there at some point. Once this all tempers down, it'll remind you a lot of America. And in fact, in many ways, they're a lot more patriotic than even we are here. None of that woke mind virus happening over there in Israel. They're a beautiful, great country. We'll continue the conversation about last night's debate. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, October 2nd. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS, the morning after a good debate. In fact, probably not as many hungover debate watchers this morning because it was actually quite intellectual and civil, and a good insight into parties' answers to deal with our problems. So if you were just expecting a fight or a discussion on golf scores, didn't happen last night. The WWE element left behind for a more traditional, moderate debate on issues. Clearly, from my perspective, I think J.D. Vance won, did a great job, set up the Trump operation well to finish. And, you know, Walz wasn't a total disaster, but obviously more nervous, over-prepared, doesn't have the experience dealing with the media, and fumbled out there a little bit, probably not sending the best message with regards to Harris-Walz that they're ready to lead. Would love to get your thoughts on this. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Blake, I know where you landed on this one.
Yeah, Walz is amazing. He's going to be a great vice president.
Walz?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I wanted to see if you were listening.
Is that similar to this?
I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it.
Yes, exactly. Little sarcasm in my voice there.
Mistake there. And part of
man.
me, look, the media and social media will rip Tim Walz up and down for that. Mm-hmm. But I misspeak 15 times a day because I talk for 4 hours unscripted. So
Right.
I'm going
Exactly.
to clearly
No,
say things wrong. But yeah, not quite
No
this
question.
I've been
wrong.
friends with school shooters. I've seen it.
Well, you never look as frightened as he did last night in front of the camera. I can tell you that. Oh yeah, we all have them. There's no doubt. I just don't like his ideology. You know, he's a nut.
No, and he's just not prepared for the job. Come on.
No.
And I actually I said this early on when clear Democrat leaders were not jumping into the presidential race if the smart ones, and I'm not saying smart in the sense of their policy leadership, but the ones that are smart enough to possibly be a Democrat nominee, the Gavin Newsoms, the Jared Polises, those types of leaders all stood back and were like, Kamala, it's all yours.
That's
Go
true.
ahead. It's all yours. And then they
right.
pick Tim Walz, and they're just going to kind of bumble through. I wonder if deep within the recesses of the Democrat Party operation, they've never expected Kamala to win this one.
You may be right. I mean, after you let it simmer, you look at it, they may be blown away that she still has a chance, which I'm still shocked at, which doesn't say a lot about our country.
I mean, they're literally going, we know Kamala is a disaster, but here's Julia Roberts.
Right.
Look
Absolutely.
at Julia.
Yeah, there you
Julia is what you want to vote for. And by the way, here's Chris Rock. He's a funny guy.
Yeah.
Tim Walz, Kamala Harris, ignore that dumpster fire. We get the pretty people.
Well, it's we've seen it before. It's just the dumbing down of America.
Yes.
So hopefully we can right the ship. Coming up 63 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 89 today. Going to be a beautiful day. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story: Israeli forces are engaging in fighting on the ground with Hezbollah fighters in southern Lebanon. This comes after Iran fired 200 ballistic missiles at Israel yesterday, with most of them being deterred. Prime Minister Netanyahu said that it was a big mistake made by Iran and the country will pay. Iran said the attack was a response to the killings of Hezbollah and Hamas leaders. President Biden and G7 leaders will hold a call on the rising tensions in the Middle East today. That should be interesting. Florida Senator Rick Scott is laying the blame for the recent attacks on Israel by Iran on its proxies at the feet of the Biden-Harris administration.
4 years ago, Iran was weak, broken, powerless. Now, what's happened is, with this appeasement effort by Biden and Harris, what's happened is Iran's got a lot of money. They've given it to Houthis, Hezbollah.
All right, back to what happened last night.
I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times. And I'm a knucklehead at times. And I'm a knucklehead at times.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Just ask family members in Nebraska. J.D. Vance in total control last night. Confidence, clarity, likability, and reassuring. And probably the best part of the VP debate last night.
We have so much to get to. Have to clarify. Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important
we're
because
going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that you guys weren't going to
we're-
fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That
Thank
is
you,
the
Senator.
facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank
our
you,
own
Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal.
That's how you fact check them. Fact check them.
That I'm actually, you know how I design shirts about Kyle Clark, and
Yes.
he even tweets about him. I don't
Uh-huh.
know if you saw that the other day. He's
No, I
now,
didn't see that one.
he's designing his own shirts now because
Is he?
we've been messing with him. I'm going to design a shirt and put it up on Twitter right now that says "Fact Check Kyle Clark."
I love it. Let's go.
Let's just you got to fact check the media if you're a conservative.
No
you got to
doubt.
walk into a room
That's right.
and take on all three people. That's the only way to do it.
What colors do you have them in?
I don't know.
I think she's doing it. I like red with white lettering.
We'll do
I think
that
I
one.
look good. All right.
Fact
Sounds
check
good.
Kyle Clark.
Trimmed in blue. Yeah, I like that, man. All right. Here's what CNN had to say.
I think there was a clear lack of preparation and execution here
I
on
think
Walz's
that
part.
I think actually it's the opposite. I think he had too much preparation.
Maybe,
He
yeah.
had so many lines that he was clearly trying to say
Yeah.
that he didn't listen and said when J.D. Vance said one of the many things he really hit Kamala Harris on, not Tim Walz, but Kamala Harris, he didn't respond because he clearly had things in his mind.
Yeah, I agree with that. Rescue teams still searching for survivors in North Carolina towns devastated by flooding from Hurricane Helene. FEMA rescue teams from around the country helping North Carolina National Guard locate stranded people in the flooded mountain towns in the western part of the state. And state officials say over 500 people have been rescued so far. Elon Musk has agreed to use dozens of Starlink receivers and terminals to help residents in North Carolina regain access to the internet. The Biden administration is supporting U.S. dock workers on day 2 of the major union strike. The strike by the International Longshoremen's Association is blocking everything from food to vehicle shipments at ports from Maine to Texas.
From Television City in Hollywood.
And the great actor John Amos has passed away at the age of 84. He was known for his roles in Good Times, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Coming to America, and The West Wing. He received an Emmy nomination for his performance in 1977 for the mini series on ABC called Roots, and died of natural causes. He played football at Colorado State University and lived in West Cliff, Colorado for a period of his life. 60 in Centennial, 61 in Westminster, 63 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Wednesday. Blake Olson News Talk 710 KNUS.
Mostly sunny, dry days, mostly clear, cool nights, and temperatures that'll be bouncing up and down a little bit here in Denver between now and the end of the weekend, but still no precipitation coming. Very warm today. Highs in the upper 80s, lows tonight near 50. Cooler tomorrow. Temperatures back down into the 70s, but then into the 80s, dry and sunny Friday through Sunday. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So last night, great debate for J.D. Vance. I thought he had some just great lines. Here was probably his best from my perspective.
Honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
Man, that was so direct to the people. It was so clear. He didn't stumble through. I stumbled through my own words. He was brilliant last night. I think that was his best moment. Compared this with Tim Walz.
Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement, make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive.
Maybe it was just the politics of joy that spun me off, but I don't know what that is. What is a politics of joy in midst of all the challenges that we're facing here? Give me a call and tell me what the politics of joy is. 303-696-1971 or text the show on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Now, Bill, I'm going to give a little caveat on what happened last night. So tactically, J.D. Vance was brilliant, communicative, looked good, peered through that camera with those steely blue eyes that got all the hearts of the young ladies in America pitter-pattering away. He was brilliant. He did fantastic. But as a conservative policy guy, he was tacked a little bit to the moderate side, and I get what they're doing. I understand. They're 30 days out, and they are seeking to win over the last vestiges of independent voters. But there were a few things where I'm just like, give a good conservative answer, and he gave a nice moderate answer.
Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be mandated to pay their employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who is an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of childcare model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with childcare. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide childcare in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access to any of these federal monies. We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote childcare, because look, it is unacceptable. And, you know, of course, Tim and I have been on the campaign trail a lot the past 7 or 8 weeks. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options, like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
All right. So if you're a moderate independent, that is a great answer. That is a beautiful answer about choice and options and block grants and all that good stuff. And man, I think that probably connected. As a campaign strategist, I'm clapping. JD Vance, great job. And as a conservative philosopher-ish person, I have a degree on a wall for this philosophy, but I'm sitting there, my mind goes back to Reagan when the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm here from the government, and I'm from the government, I'm here to help. I'm going, this is not our job. It's not our job. I'm sorry that it is expensive for childcare. It is not the government's job. Every time the government gets into anything, it gets crappier and more expensive. And there is another part of me that wanted to go, stand strong, Ron Paul, stand strong and say, no, this is not the role of government. But alas, we're 30 days out from a presidential.
Yeah, he started making all sorts of promises that would be more the purview of the Democrats. I mean, he's pushing family leave there. And that's a little crazy, especially when you say this is now. And what I could take from that is, what does it tell you about the electorate? And what does it tell you about where the GOP knows they are versus where the electorate is? If J.D. Vance felt that the core ideas behind what the GOP was doing with the economy were strong, he would have done that. He didn't. He went and started co-opting stuff that is considered more liberal. He started talking about issues that would be more at home inside a Democrat party, inside what you'd hear coming out of Kamala Harris or Tim Walz. But he didn't. He used those things. And so that tells me a lot about where he thinks and where the strategists think they are as a party when they're talking to the electorate, that their message isn't resonating. They have to go and talk this in order to find more voters.
That, as much as it is, we're 30 days out having a debate over the role of government as it relates to paid family leave and childcare is not the time to do it, right? We're going to have these debates on the nature. And believe me, as I traveled around this state on paid family leave issues, discussing them and debating them and showing that ballot initiative we have where we charge everybody for it wasn't the only solution. There's lots of different solutions to paid family leave. So maybe the smart thing at this point is we're going to talk about the importance of taking care of families and children and get that message across. And then once we win, the actual nature of the policy related to paid family leave, because there's a lot of different options out there. We'll get into it. But I was just like, man, come on, give them the good old Ron Paul.
And I think that is the detriment in that conversation, is that if the idea is we shouldn't talk about the details before we get elected, and we need to, as Kamala is doing, running on vibes, because if we roll out what our specifics are, they either won't be conservative or the voters will reject them. that should tell you about what your policies are. That is an indictment, just like I have an indictment on some of Kamala's
He
policies.
gets into that last night, where I'm not going to roll out a 900-page policy plan tonight to discuss that, but we can get into principles and ideas.
Yeah, but again, he didn't come into anything as far as changing the healthcare, the dynamics when he was talking about the 900-page policies. And that's part of it is we kept talking about the idea of policy discussion. And what I'm pointing out is when J.D. Vance went into the policy discussion, he tacked middle left. That's where he went with those. Yeah. So that tells me where he feels the electorate is, not inside the core of what the Democrats are saying their principles are. MAGA is locked down. But in order to get over the finish line, you have to expand the tent.
Yes.
This is telling me J.D. Vance, the Republican strategist, don't think the core MAGA policy positions resonate with the larger electorate because he's not pushing that. He's not waving that flag. He's not trumpeting them.
Wouldn't you say the very similar thing about Kamala Harris and all of a sudden her rejection of fracking bans? And look at all the guns I have.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So they.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that during the previous Democrat primary, she was trying to out-liberal Bernie. She was running for the Bernie Sanders wing. She was trying to be as far left as she possibly could.
I think that's where she
to
actually resides.
And
I think those are her principles.
I don't. And here's the reason why. I don't, because I think where Kamala actually resides is in the same place that Walz resides, which is the same place that Vance resides, which is the same place that Trump resides. Win. I want to win. And that's why we see the change in what Kamala has been doing. And that's why she has tacked strongly more moderate. The idea that we're hearing her in Pennsylvania saying that she supports fracking is mind-boggling. However, we have a vice presidential candidate that at one time thought his running mate could be America's Hitler. So we got a whole bunch of weirdness going on with people changing positions, changing policies, and changing opinions. That's where we are. And this is the most unique and unusual election cycle that I've ever lived through. And that's part of it. That's part of this conversation.
I wonder, too, how much of it is the shifting foundations of the parties. So we have two of the three oldest parties in the world. And part of the reason we have this, and I've talked to historians about it, is because our parties adapt.
Yeah.
They shift and adapt to whatever major issues are being. There's general policies that guide them, right?
Oh, we can go from when you talk about where Abraham Lincoln is, and then you talk about going through Civil War, and then you talk about what happens with Jim Crow, and then you talk about the beginning of the Civil Rights era, and then you talk about Southern strategy. I mean, we have had both parties flip 180 degrees on us a couple of times. They are parties that once said one thing, now support something completely and totally different. And both parties have done it. And it is remarkable. And now, that change
so I
that's going
wonder
on.
if there's an underground shift that's taking place that both parties are trying to desperately figure out and tap into. Because the idea that Democrats are now the foreign party of foreign wars and Republicans are the isolationists. That's just another example of the shift.
And free trade. The hell? I mean, just bizarre as far as some of the economic policies. It is crazy. And to think that you would have so many people involved in the investment banking community pushing for Harris. That is nuts. I don't get it. Yes. Interesting times you live in, my friend.
And Dick Cheney. So let's just talk about where that guy camps out now. All right.
I know. How's that possibly? And speaking of camping, I want to talk to our listeners here for just a second. I got to talk about the adventures that you have stopped doing. Going out hunting, hiking, camping, things you did when you're younger that you're not doing anymore because of the pain you're going through every day. That's where I was before I met the team at Balance Wellspace. I was living my life every day in just a level of pain. Where is it going to be? Somewhere between 4 and 8, and you're just going to have to get through it. There were things I had stopped doing in my life. There were things I stopped doing with my kids and other family members, but I'm not there anymore. I feel like I'm 10 to 15 years younger because of the work of Balance Wellspace. I want them to make the same change in your life they made in mine. The difference is integrative medicine. It's a one-stop shop, brand new offices here in Lowry, right across from hangar number 2, plenty of parking, and they offer so many things under one roof. This is why they're different than your current medical team, all the doctors you're visiting. You can get chiropractic care, neuropathic care, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, trigger point injections, and a bunch of cutting-edge technologies that look like there's something out of Star Trek, all non-invasive, right there in the office. That's the difference to you, respecting your time, respecting your effort. Plus, it's one medical team focused on getting you feeling better. Your current medical team, offices to office to office, several appointments over the course of a month and weeks, they're not talking about you at all. Balanced Wellspace goes back and reviews your progress every 3 weeks. They talk to you. They manipulate you. They do some more chiropractic work. They see where you are and what is working really well and what isn't working. And then they will adjust as needed. Your current medical team isn't doing that. They're not sitting down discussing you ever. So make the change. Talk to the people that are really concerned on making sure that your pain goes away and stays away. Right now, as we're talking, I'm regenerating the meniscus in my left knee. That's Star Trek level stuff. I'm doing the same thing with a disc in my back, right? 3/4 of it taken out over 20 years ago. Now, I don't have the numbness. I don't have the pain, the tingling. I've got the strength that I haven't had in years. Talk to Dr. Julie, Dr. Jess, the team over at Balanced Wellspace. Have them make this remarkable change in your life as well. That pain you're living in doesn't have to be that way, but it can't stop until you talk to Balanced Wellspace. BalanceWellspace.com. BalanceWellspace.com. Let them make the same difference in your life they are making in mine. I trust them, and you can too. And when you contact them, do us a favor. Tell them you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show. Helps us out.
Great to hear that, Bill. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KN.
At this hour, I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Jeep is recalling more than 194,000 plug-in hybrid SUVs worldwide because they can catch fire with the ignition turned off. In addition, Jeep is urging owners not to charge the SUVs and to park them outdoors and away from structures until they are repaired. The recall covers the Wrangler 4xE from the 2020 through 2024 model years, as well as the Grand Cherokee 4xE from 2022 through 2024. Most of the recalled SUVs are in North America. Stellantis, which makes Jeeps, said affected customers will be notified when they can schedule service, and the risk of fire is reduced when the battery charge is depleted. A routine review of customer data led to an investigation that found 13 fires with 2 injuries. Stellantis estimates that 5% of the SUVs have the problem. Widespread devastation left behind by Hurricane Helene is being witnessed across the South in a wasteland of splintered houses, crushed cargo containers, and mud-covered highways in one of the worst storms in U.S. history. The death toll has now topped 130. In fact, at least 133 deaths in 6 southeastern states have been attributed to the storm that inflicted damage from Florida's Gulf Coast to the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia. During a briefing this week, Homeland Security suggested that as many as 600 people hadn't been accounted for as of Monday afternoon, saying some might be dead. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Aguayo, Salem News Channel.
Awesome on the economy and where the Biden-Harris administration has put us. How do you think he did on abortion? Here's one of his responses on it.
You're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family.
What do you think of his response? Look, I'm a life at conceptions guy. If I was on the debate as a guy who ran a conservative think tank for a Christian university for 8 years, I would be life all in at this point. Stop killing innocent children. And Vance takes a more nuanced approach in light of of our electorate. Do you see him as abandoning his pro-life principles, or do you see him tactically putting Tim Walz on the defensive regarding the extreme nature of the Democrats' position on abortion? Bill?
See, my understanding of the law is that J.D. Vance is mischaracterizing it. He's using it as a broad brush, and that's not necessarily what it says. I believe, and again, I can totally be wrong. It'll just be the 17th time this morning, but it has to do with non-viable infants. And so the reason that the late-term abortion happens is that the infant is non-viable or there's something else going on. And so the idea that this is a fully formed baby that would go on to live a regular life or even a mildly impacted life post-birth is incorrect. Again, based on my understanding that this window is about what you do with that baby that is not viable. It is going to pass away, but what care do you provide for it at that moment? And that's part of the conversation between the doctor and the parents at that point. And so between them, my understanding of the law is they should decide. But again, and I could be completely wrong, but my understanding is these are non-viable infants. These are infants that are going to pass away either way. And I think that J.D. Vance was purposefully incorrect on that point.
So there's, I think, a few different laws at play here. One has to do with if a child survives an abortion and is outside of the womb. We've tried to run these in Colorado. You try to establish a doctor-patient relationship between the living, breathing child outside the womb and the doctor. There's a doctor in the room. You have a responsibility as a doctor to try to take care of that child and do life-saving. There's no requirement that it would be likely to die, possibly could die. None of that stuff's in the law, at least here in Colorado, and I'm pretty sure with Minnesota as well. It's just that there's an established relationship, and therefore, as a doctor, you have to do everything you can to possibly save the life of that child. You can't just let it wither and die a very painful death. And these pro-choice states, Minnesota, Colorado, have refused to establish those doctor-patient relationships in law because they're so pro-abortion that because it's a failed abortion attempt, we're therefore going to allow. The choice was already made. The parents don't want that child. Therefore, if it survives the abortion attempt, is outside the womb, well, the choice has already been made, so we're going to let that child die. And it's just inhumane.
Well, and that I understand that in the conditions as you describe them, but the part that is left out of the conversation is the non-viable infant. And these are 1% of the abortions that happen, and that is the vast majority of them. Is these are not women who are, in most cases, there are some cases, but in the vast majority of this 1% of the abortions that take place, these are non-viable infants that for whatever reason, they're not developing a brainstem or something else has happened, and the baby is not going to live. And so that is a rough decision outside of the womb.
There's no requirement on the viability in that law.
But I'm not
so
sure.
It doesn't have to fall
look.
into a category of non-viable.
No, it doesn't. But the vast majority of these procedures we talk about are non-viable infants. And
but
if we want to just add
viable.
but if we want to add that language in, sure. But here's the idea: is even if we add that language in, it is a fraction of a percent. And so that's okay. I agree with you. I agree with you on that. But here's the idea. It's being used, this fraction of a percent cases is being used as the broad generalization to say the entire thing is wrong. And that's where I disagree. I agree the fraction of the percent are wrong. But in those non-viable infant cases, that is a decision for the parents and the doctor.
Minnesota has found, I believe, 8 children that were born alive and allowed to die because of botched abortions. And that was a direct result of this law by Tim Walz. But I want to go back to J.D. Vance. I think J.D. Vance, while I would have loved for him to take a bold, strong stand for the sanctity of life and that God is the author of human life and that we have a responsibility to protect that and that the actual procedure of abortions is incredibly inhumane and barbaric. It's just the crushing of the skulls of children in the second trimester, the starving of nutrients in the first trimester, and just an outright death penalty to children in the third trimester. While I would have loved for him to stand there, I think he does a generally good job of taking on an issue where the culture's not with me. I understand that. That's the challenge JD faces. And doing a pretty good job of being pro-life, but not necessarily being where I am pro-life.
Yeah, he did thread the needle very, very well, but it goes back to our previous conversation of what does it say when J.D. Vance has to go out there and take positions that are not part of the core GOP positions. And that says something about what he's doing for the broader electorate. And that also would mean something to if you do vote for him and he gets into power and becomes the vice president, along with Trump being the president, then if they do enact a national abortion ban, they don't get to complain about it. Because that is the core of where this is going. And I'm also curious, because you're on the more evangelical side, are you okay with this softening of the position by both Trump and Vance? Because there's part of me that feels that's why the evangelicals held their nose and supported Trump the first time because of right to life. And you got Roe versus Wade pulled. Now Trump is softening on this position significantly. Is he... is he basically going back on his word with you guys?
Most evangelicals see it as a challenge with the culture that we've got to do work with, right? They don't. It's not like Trump is all of a sudden breaking with the majority of Americans who want pro-life laws and saying, I'm not going to do it. He's reflecting a moment where we are in our culture that I think is deeply deceived about the nature of human life, who authors it, and the role of government in protecting human life. And we as evangelicals got to go out there. And it's not just Trump. I mean, look at the pro-life ballot initiatives in Colorado financially. Yeah. And I've tweeted this before. The Democrats love abortion more than Christians want to stop it. Just
That's a really
financially.
good analogy.
Just financially.
Yeah.
We're not giving the amount of money. We're not working nearly as hard. We've got a major gut check that needs to happen on our commitment to advancing the sanctity of life in a culture that is willing to embrace abortion. And so I think most evangelicals don't look at Trump and go, well, he's the problem. No, it's us. We got the work to do.
And I think you're exactly right. And it's a wonderful analogy about the commitment. I think you're right. And this is why, again, this is an awful analogy. This is not equating them, but this is just an example. Again, awful analogy. But that's why I believe on the Democrat side, Kamala gets a pass for things like her change on the fracking positions, for her change on things like some transgender rights and deportation and surgeries in prisons, because she knows the larger electorate is not with her. And so she's doing the same thing that Trump and Vance are, just from the other direction. Again, I would agree that abortion is a larger issue than fracking. They're not equatable in any way, shape, or form. But I think it's the same behavior in some ways.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Bill. All right, want to talk to you all about my good friends over at Advanced Hair Restoration. For many of us, it's happening. Your hair's thinning, your crown's disappearing. Maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity's lost altogether. Well, I've got good news. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day. And it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. We've all seen the pills, lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They help retain what you have, but what if what you want is your own natural hair permanently in specific areas? From Advanced Hair state-of-the-art facilities to world-class Dr. Tanya Pauls, it's not maybe will your hair regrow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. Advancedhair.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, our friends over at Colorado Christian University have an exciting event coming up. An exclusive luncheon and lecture on Friday, November 15th, featuring the 48th Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, and his wife, former Second Lady, Karen Pence. In partnership with the Centennial Institute, CCU President Eric Oak, this event offers a unique opportunity to engage in conversation with Vice President of America's most dedicated public servant, sharing his perspective on the future of the conservative movement. And we have first thank you on CCU on learn more. Limited are available you'll engage in conversations on leadership, faith, and service with these distinguished guests. Please join CCU on November 15th for these events with Mike and Karen Pence. Go to ccu.edu/Pence to get tickets and to learn more. That's ccu.edu/Pence. Bill, it's been a busy day, but I think we can squeeze it in.
I think we can. It is time to be a little silly. Yes, we are going to spend the last couple of moments on this show doing the naughty stuff we do early in the morning when most of the time those in charge are not around. They've got a sales meeting going on right now, so we have a window of opportunity that we will take advantage of. Alrighty, it is what we call You Choose the News, scouring the interwebs for mere moments this morning to find really, really dumb stories about us humans, giving them more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show. Alrighty, Mr. Hunt, here are your choices this morning. Headline number 1, all about the Benjamins. Headline number 2, eliminating the competition. Headline number 3, leadership in action. And headline number 4, taking advice from the Taliban. Your
all
choice,
about
sir.
the Benjamins.
It's all about the Benjamins. A former Jacksonville Jaguar employee, Amit Patel, is now suing FanDuel, saying it is your fault that I embezzled more than $22 million from my employer to gamble. Yeah, $22 million.
You should fire your CFO too.
Yeah, he was part of the finance team, and he was able to scrape off more than $20 million from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he said he only did it because FanDuel was so persuasive. They kept giving me free things and free bets and asking me to spend more. And maybe he doesn't understand how gambling works. I don't know, but perhaps people in Vegas would like to talk to him because I imagine he's a big fish. Yeah, but he's suing FanDuel, saying you made me gamble. I disagree, sir. I think that was all on you. Yeah, exactly.
What an excuse.
Yeah, I know. What an excuse. All righty, here's your next choice. Eliminating the competition, leadership in action, or taking advice from the Taliban.
Let's take advice from the
Yes, always take advice from the Taliban. Here we are talking about Sean Diddy Combs. He's going all Taliban on us in order to get released from jail. He is asking the Second Circuit Court of Appeals to allow him to post bail. And he says, I super secret promise not to be around any of the women, so I can't do any of the bad things with the women. I also will undergo weekly drug testing, and I won't meet with anybody who'd be considered a witness, a co-conspirator, or anything of that nature. And maybe he promises to wear a job. I'm not sure. I maybe asked that last part, but I like the idea that he's like, no touchy the women. Hang on.
I would be, after hearing Blake's report earlier that there might be 9-year-old girls involved.
Yeah,
I think Guantanamo sounds like a wonderful place.
Oh, yeah, this is awful. This was somewhat of an open secret for years in music, and it is awful. And he only stayed insulated for so long because of the power he had in the industry. He no longer has that power. That's why same thing with Harvey Weinstein.
What kind of industries, man?
Oh, tell me about it. I know.
Are hiding these people.
Yeah, it is awful.
I guess you can't just blame music and television when churches sometimes do this as well.
Yeah, it's just awful. It's a person that was given too much power, too much control. We won't do that one. Okay, here we go. Final choice this morning: eliminating the competition or leadership in action.
Leadership in action.
Leadership in action. This is a lesson in leadership. Here we are traveling to the gorgeous state of Florida, who's recovering from the hurricane right now. Oddly enough, Matt Gaetz decided to show leadership of a different kind of the Sunshine State just one day before the hurricane hit. On that day, he decided to not vote for the continuing resolution, which would have made sure that FEMA stayed in business. So if Matt Gaetz would have had his way, FEMA would not be running right now during the hurricane and the government would be shut down. That's really going to help out his constituents. That's a great way to make sure you understand where the voters are
can
going.
recover from that hurricane yourselves. You don't need the federal government.
Yes, Matt Gaetz will show up and he'll hand you all those bootstraps. Here you go. Put
I
them
love
on.
when they then take credit for all of it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to wander around talking about all the hurricane help that he voted against. And he's done this before. In, I believe it's 4 years ago, he voted against another hurricane relief package days before another hurricane hit Florida.
I can understand voting against these omnibus, right, where they throw everything in. You're like, look, I appreciate what it could do to my people, but my goodness, you're just going to drive us right off a debt cliff with this thing. But if it's just these standalone bills,
why not? Why not?
You got to help your people out.
And again, the idea of that hurricane's coming, let's shut the government down. That's an odd plan. Let's see how that works out. Cotton.
Hurricane party.
Exactly.
No government. They're not coming by to bust up that party. All right. It's been a wonderful show. If you missed any of it, go to 710knus.com. Charlie Kirk's up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.